Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. Closer to a big weekend of Big 12 football. You got Utah hockey in action. Jazz camp begins next week. Utah Jazz basketball camp, not like your saxophone and trombone camp, all right? BYU. A ranked BYU, undefeated still at 4-0, to the surprise of many who were paying close attention to the Big 12 and its predictive powers or lack thereof. They've got a road game in Waco, Texas against Baylor. Despite being the undefeated team, despite being the ranked team, BYU started the week and has spent the week as an underdog going to Baylor. That one, we'll get to it on the show today, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. We've got a fun one lined up for you, Gordy Chiesa, to talk about that upcoming basketball season. That'll be a quick little conversation in about 25 minutes. The Rising Report with Cam Rising. We've got Eric Weddle joining us. We're trying to catch up with the mayor of Sac Lake City, of course, as once again Utah has the leading sack man in the Big 12 Conference, heading now into the fifth week of play. And it's an interesting matchup for Utah. Night game at Rice-Eccles, University of Arizona.
Finally, right, OC?
Finally. James Peterson producing today. Finally, you all get to put on your black Utah Under Armour gear. You get to go out there. It should be a chilly but kind of temperate night. Is that the – yeah. Temperate's fine.
Temperate's the right word.
It's a good word.
Mild, temperate, whatever
you're
you
probably
want to do.
going to need the hoodie in the second half. You'll probably start the game not necessarily needing extra warmth, but it's going to be a wild one. And the question, the million-dollar question here is, how good is the University of Arizona? Because I told you in the preseason, this is a dangerous matchup for the Utes. Arizona is an incredibly talented team when it comes to their skill positions. They also have a first-round draft pick on the offensive line in Jonas Avayanea. They have at least one corner who's getting looks from the NFL. Their linebacking core is undersized but athletic. There are players at every level now on offense and defense. And the question becomes with Arizona, is this coaching staff able to get the most out of this roster like they were last year, like Jed Fish and his crew were last year? And that whole staff has moved on. I really like Brent Brennan as a coach. The most recent sample of what you got from Arizona football was not appealing, was not quality, was not anything to write home about. Last time we saw Arizona on a football field, they were getting smashed by Kansas State, who then came to Provo and got smashed by BYU. So the transitive property in football, MMA math, we call it in the combat sports world.
MMA math. Love it.
Kansas State is way better than Arizona, and BYU is way better than Kansas State, which means BYU is double way better than Arizona, and we don't really know how BYU and Utah match up against one another just yet, but we think Utah's a lot better than BYU, which means that according to that transitive property, Utah's about 4 times better than Arizona is.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. And based on preseason expectations, since BYU's doubly better than Arizona, then Utah must be quadruply better than BYU. Yeah. And it was interesting because on Tuesday you had your guy Jeff Schwartz on, and he was talking about how one-dimensional Arizona's offense looks with Fafita to T-Mac, right? Looking at the stats, it looks like they get a decent production out of their running game.
Depending on who they're playing against. They only ran for 50 yards in that game against Kansas State. And Utah, statistically, philosophically, everything is more built against the run than Kansas State is. Yeah,
so and the fact that they had a bye week this last week makes this game even harder to predict. I mean, I predict a Utah win at this point, but what Arizona team are we going to see, right? What are we going to see? The team that looked like one of the more talented teams in the Big 12? Or are we going to see the team that could barely run the ball, as you just said, against another one of the better teams going into the season in the Big 12, but that also just got smashed by a team that looked like it was going to be on the bottom of the conference, near the bottom of the conference in BYU in the preseason. So it's a tough one.
What's great about college football is it reminds you of how little you know.
Yeah.
Our ability to prognosticate in college football is actually horrifically bad, but every single year we do the same thing. And we forget how bad we were at our prediction last year, and we say, this year I'm very certain that this player is going to play this well and that this team is going to be this deep and that this coach knows exactly what he's doing with this group of guys, and these are going to be the best teams. Now, there are some teams in the country who are just so deep and so loaded and so talented that the result, even if it's not the same player that you think it's going to be, that the result ends up being very similar. But BYU is a good example of this. And I know that this is the home of the Utes, and we're going to treat it like that, I promise. But BYU this year, if you were paying attention to what they are on paper, they were a team with a quarterback question, and the guy that ends up getting the start, Jacob Retzlaff, is an absolute turnover machine. He has still shown some of that this year, but against Kansas State, he showed growth. He made good decisions. So on paper, Jacob Retzlaff is not what he was last year. Or he's not what he was on paper last year. What you actually watch him play football this year, he's not what he was on paper coming into the year. So your prediction on that was probably a little bit wrong. The running back room was a strength. Hinckley Rapati and LJ Martin. And then those guys go down. And again, on paper, that strength now becomes, a liability.
What are they on their fourth string running back right now?
And that fourth string running back broke about 75 tackles against Kansas State.
So he's playing like a first or second string running back.
And by the way, he scored 26 touchdowns for Timpview High School and had almost 10 yards of carry there. Now, you can't project that to Division I Power 4 football until you see it. And I'm not expecting Sione Moa to be an all-conference back this year, but he's a guy who runs hard and is 5'10 and 215 pounds and really tough to bring down. So all of a sudden, what you thought was, again, predictively and on paper, was going to be a weakness. You're like, oh, wow, that kid's pretty good. On paper, production-wise, BYU's wide receiving core, not a whole lot to write home about, right? But you look at how athletic they are. You talk to some of the coaches down there and the plans. If you can get your quarterback to just be accurate and dial it in, the plans for this wide receiving core, all of a sudden you're like, all right, you know what? Maybe they're actually a little bit better than we thought. Tyler Batty's supposed to be the best player on that defense and really the only great player on that defense. Not the case. You're supposed to have one good D-end, one good corner. Instead, you have three awesome linebackers, two really good defensive linemen, a great safety, a great corner, and you still have Tyler Batty. So, again, it all comes out in the wash. And is BYU going to be a conference champion this year? I don't think so. Is BYU a hell of a lot better than we predicted they would be? Yes. And that brings me back to the University of Arizona. We knew that Noah Fafita was a problem. He is a good quarterback. He's good on script and off script. He's good when you pressure him. He's good at keeping his eyes downfield. He's got great arm talent. And more important than that, he has not just one great wide receiver. He's got a 1A transcendent talent, Tateroa McMillan, who's going to be a first-round draft pick. And he's got Montana Lamonius Craig, who's pretty solid as a second option. Now, where it falls off for Arizona is they do not have a really established run game. So they're not going to try to do anything cute against the University of Utah. They know what happens when you try to line up and slug it out with the Utes defense. Arizona has that familiarity. They have the Pac-12 years of film study and tape. And they know what they are personnel-wise. Brent Brennan is a good coach. He knows exactly what his team is. He is not going to try and run the ball down the throat of Utah's defense, at least not early in this game, at least not until they can keep him on, make him work.
Maybe a
flip side to the Kyle Whittingham coin.
Yeah.
Establish the run that opens up the pass, that gets your tight ends open and loose, that gets Dorian Singer more established. They're going to do the opposite thing. They're going to say Noah Fafita is coming, and he's just throwing that ball to T-Mac until you can prove to us you can stop it. Now, for Utah, the question becomes, how do you stop it? Do you stop it by getting to Noah Fafita as quickly as you can? The pass rush, a 4-man pass rush for Utah this year, has not been overly productive. They are not. This is not 2014. This is not, you got Snacks and you got Nate Orchard, who's going to join us on the show today, and you got linebackers who are blitzing gaps. This is not that year. This is a year where I think they're going to be incredibly stout against the run, and maybe the pass rush, we overestimated. Again, going back to our predictive abilities. I put a poll out there, James, you remember this. Who is going to be the mayor of Sac Lake City this year? The overwhelming response is going to be Logan Fano. He's got 1 sack through 4 games.
Well, was Connor O'Toole second, and he missed a game already.
And Connor O'Toole could be out again this week. We don't have accurate predictive abilities on that.
A whole other story on trying to predict who's playing for Utah week to week.
Van Fillinger has been the best defensive player for Utah, leads the conference in sacks right now, leads the conference in tackles for loss right now. He's been excellent in the run game. Up until last week, he was not only your leading sack man, he was your leading tackler. That should not be the case from the defensive end position. Your linebackers and your safeties, this defense is designed for them to be tackling machines. Those positions by nature are designed to make them tackling machines. It has been Van Fillinger up until last week. So Utah has not been exactly what we thought on the defensive side of the ball, but it's been really excellent. It's been good, and especially for 48 and a half minutes of that Baylor game, they were smothering and stifling. You did benefit from Alan Bowman being historically bad that day.
Was so bad in Stillwater.
And look, you don't take credit away from your defense when your defense is forcing some of those errors, but I don't know how many of you have watched this game through twice or 2.5 times. Alan Bowman missed some wide open receivers. And when I say some wide open receivers, I'm talking about like on 6 throws at least. That would have been big completions that would have changed the complexion of a close game at the time, and he just missed.
Well, there was the one that wasn't, I don't know if it would have been a big game, but there was one in the fourth quarter when he threw it at the guy's feet and he was wide open and no one was near him. He was rushed a little bit because of the pass rush, but no one was really that close to hitting him, and he just threw it right straight into the ground 5 yards away. It was, he was awful in that game, and Utah benefited from that, but as you said, Utah also forced a lot of that.
Yes.
On Saturday.
And look, Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State broke Ollie Gordon. So I don't know why they did that. I don't know how that happened. It will be a mystery all year long, but Utah kept him broken in that game. I think he had 1 run for more than 10 yards in the game, and it was on one of those fourth quarter drives where somehow, inexplicably, the Oklahoma State offense woke up and made it look like a game when it wasn't really a game. So Utah now has the benefit of being at home. Utah now has the benefit of the muss and a night game and the blackout and the excitement and all of those expectations, at least some of them being lived up to, and the confidence that comes with that. But how do you stop T-Mac? How do you smother Arizona the same way that you smothered Oklahoma State? How do you rob them of their belief that they can win this game? I'm telling you, if you let T-Mac get behind you, if you let T-Mac be open on those seams, if you let T-Mac hurt you to the tune of 100-plus yards, even through 3 quarters, this is a game. If you can figure out, if Morgan Scalley can figure out how to confound Noah Fafita's ability to connect with T-Mac, it all falls apart.
When that kind of brings me to another flaw in us being able to predict things in the preseason. We all thought the cornerback position was going to be suspect for Utah. And they lost Kenan Johnson right away, which we thought was going to be even more of a blow. they've turned out to be really good to start this season. Right?
Elijah Davis has been awesome. Scooby Davis has been awesome for the University of Utah. 2 picks already this year. Smith Snowden has played incredibly well. Should have had another pick against Oklahoma State last week, but has played great. Zamiah Vaughn, they're not even throwing at Zamiah Vaughn.
No, he's getting the Deion Sanders treatment, right? The Darrelle Revis treatment a little bit.
It was actually funny, and it's funny in hindsight because there was one completion, Oklahoma State, one completion where Zamiah Vaughn kind of got turned around, and it was like a first down completion, I don't know, 12, 14 yards maybe for Oklahoma State. And you could just see almost the surprise, like bleep, I actually have to be playing here. Like I have to tackle this guy because no one's throwing at Zamiah Vaughn right now.
I mean, I guess it's because he's very good. He's earned that, but also he's the proven guy in that room going into the season, right?
And I think, for whatever reason, it's worked out that way. It certainly worked out that way against Oklahoma State.
And how about Cam Calhoun? After he missed the first game, and he's got 2 picks now. He's got the 1, and then maybe he had a near pick or 2 against Oklahoma State. I mean, he's been awesome, and that's been huge, especially with Kenan Johnson going down in the first half of the first game of the year, missing the rest of the season. To have Cam Calhoun emerge has been making up for that even more. And even more than making up for that going forward. So this is a position group that kind of illustrates what you're talking about with, hey, this is what we thought it would be in the preseason. They've actually exceeded our expectations here. And it's going to be huge, as you're saying, in this matchup with a great quarterback in Noah Fafita and kind of a one-dimensional offense reliant on he and T-Mac's connection.
So my big question here is, and I think it'll be answered quickly in this game, my big question here is how much ego gets involved for both teams? How much does Kyle Whittingham and Morgan Scalley approach this game and say, you know what? We're good enough that we can play our defense. We can play our base defense here. We can ask our guys to play press man. We can ask our guys to do what they do in every other game. Yes, this receiver is better than a lot of guys, but let's just play our defense here. I don't think you're going to see a lot of that. I think that there's been enough instances with this coaching staff, and another reason why continuity matters so much at the University of Utah, where they realize and they finally accept that, hey, sometimes you're just up against a wide receiving core that'll kill you. We know what happened in the Rose Bowl when you were shorthanded. We know what happened when years ago you played press man against a USC offense that had 3 guys who were NFL bound. The Amon-Ra St. Brown team. You had, who else was it? It was Pittman, Michael Pittman, Makai's brother.
Pittman.
Micah's brother.
Yeah.
You had
Pittman went off in that game. Was that Fink that came in and was doing all Matt Fink that killed him in the second half of that game or three-quarters of that game?
Not because you didn't have elite athletes at corner, not because you didn't have great corners, but because cornerback is the hardest position to play. When you put those guys on an island and you say, okay, just win this battle every single play, it's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to win that battle every single play. The game of football is built against corners having success. So I don't think you're going to see Zamiah Vaughn and Cam Calhoun and Smith Snowden and Scooby Davis put in those bad situations by the play call very often. I think you're going to see a lot of help. I think you're going to see a lot of bracketing, a lot of Teo Johnson rotating over the top. I think you're going to see Alakai Gilman being involved on 1 and 2 matchups specifically, on Tetero McMillan and on Montana Lamonius Craig. T-Mac will still beat those double teams. They will still find ways, Brent Brennan will still find ways to get him in isolation. You just have to limit how easy that connection is. You either have to have your hand up in the face of Noah Fafita, affecting his throw. You want to be in and around his breadbasket the whole game. Your pass rush has to help out your coverage. Your coverage has to help out your pass rush. It is very rare that you see a game that plays out, in my opinion, again, and we've already indicted our own predictive qualities that plays out, I think, this simply. Can you affect that connection? You're not going to stop it. Can you affect that connection enough to where what Jeff Schwartz was talking about is absolutely true? One-dimensional team that's one dimension is compromised enough that now it's about you and what you do. And we haven't even talked about who's the starting quarterback for the Utes yet.
Seriously. Which is still looming. Which, are you as shocked as I am that that's still I mean, I'm not shocked based on recent history, but if we take it in a vacuum, I'm pretty shocked that we're still going Cam Rising's week to week here.
Look, until I see Cam Rising actually on the field, I'm assuming, and I'm not saying on the field for warm-ups.
No, like playing.
Until we see Cam Rising, until I'm proven wrong, my conclusion now is that it's Isaac Wilson until further notice.
That's where I'm at.
I'd be very, very surprised. Better way to say this is, I would not be surprised at all if the philosophy, because of how well Isaac played at Oklahoma State, and it was far from perfect, but because he played well enough and the team around him has the confidence in him now to play up to a level that they play when Cam Rising is in there, I would not be surprised if the idea is, look, even Cam feeling better is not 100% yet. Let's see if we can get him to this bye week and get him all the way at 100% for the conference championship stretch run. That is a very, very difficult position to put Cam in, to put Isaac Wilson in, to put the offense in general in, to put everybody on this team in. But these are the things you have to deal with when you're talking about injuries. And Utah, knock on wood, has been lucky this year, especially compared to last year. The injury has happened to the most important player on this team. And
pretty unlucky.
Yeah. And you know who's emerged as the, I won't say second most, but like he's now the third most important player on the team? Isaac Wilson.
Yeah, he's been impressive. And remember after Southern Utah, I was like, it wasn't the greatest results, but I love the guy. I love the kid's poise. I love the way he didn't seem rattled by anything. And he did the same thing against Baylor. And again, it wasn't great results. And then all of a sudden, second half of Utah State, all of a sudden you're seeing, from that point on, you're seeing a kid who not only has great composure, but he's got the confidence to actually make throws that he was making and make plays that he was making at Corner Canyon, which has been fascinating to see considering he's still 18 years old.
I mean, we said this before the season began, I think, or maybe it was after that Southern Utah game. I think that every quarterback is a creature of confidence and habit, and I think that Isaac Wilson, because he is similar enough in how he plays to his brother, is uniquely vulnerable to confidence, both on the positive and the negative side of things. So building confidence for Isaac Wilson was and is one of the most important things that can happen for this Utah football team. And his ability, the ability of the team around him, and Andy Ludwig calling great games so far with him running the offense has been, I think, massively, massively important in the short term and the long term. I'm not deliberately bringing Zach Wilson into the conversation, but that's his brother, who, when confident, was just tearing it up at BYU. Killed it to the point where he was the number 2 overall draft pick. And what happened when he was robbed of that confidence?
He can't even get on the field in the NFL.
He honestly, it's destroyed him as a football player. And I guess there's some fault of his own, but that is mismanagement in a lot of ways.
Yep.
So
he got jetsed.
He did get jetsed. You're getting the opposite of that right now with Isaac Wilson. And we all know what Cam Rising is and what he's supposed to be for this team. Because you cannot bank on him being available anymore, you have to look and see, well, what is Isaac Wilson? Let's answer that question. We know what Cam is. What is Isaac Wilson, though? And that question becomes more and more important week by week without Cam having a healthy throwing hand. So right now, the answer to that question is Isaac Wilson is good enough. And last thing I want to get to before we go to a break, where is Arizona dangerous for Utah? We already told you their passing attack, specifically to T-Mac, specifically the connection between Noah Fafita and T-Mac. Defensively, this is a bad matchup for the University of Arizona. They are, remember when we talked about Oklahoma State being the 13th best rushing defense in the conference?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who the 14th best rushing defense in the conference is?
Arizona?
It's the University of Arizona. And by the way, Oklahoma State.
That was a shot in the dark, OC. I didn't know if I was going to get that right.
Oklahoma State got demoted to 16th best in the conference because of Utah.
Because of Mekhi Bernard.
Because of Mekhi Bernard in the offensive line at the University of Utah. Arizona is 14th best against the run.
Whew.
Arizona is middle of the road. They're tied for 7th against the pass. These are similar numbers to what you saw. Now, Oklahoma State was bad in both categories last week.
Yeah, they would kill to be 7th against the pass.
Oklahoma State now, by the way, 16th in pass defense, 16th in run defense.
Whew. They are the worst defense, no matter how you slice it in the conference.
And remember, that was a team that was picked 3rd in the preseason conference poll. And a team that we talked about Nick Martin being one of the best players in the conference. We talked about them having the best linebacking core, period. That distinction might belong to BYU right now. But yeah, Oklahoma State was supposed to have the best linebacking core. One of those linebackers, Nick Martin, was supposed to be the best guy in the conference. Colin Oliver, one of the best guys in the conference. Rucker, number 9 for Oklahoma State, still is one of the best guys in the conference, but not enough that they are not 16th in both categories. So I should say expect better defense from Arizona than you saw from Oklahoma State.
Only slightly.
In the passing game especially. But right now, the University of Arizona is bad against the run. And guess who's really good at running the football right now? Your Utes. And guess who, with quarterback questions, either a Cam Rising less than 100% with the throwing hand or an Isaac Wilson, who still is a true freshman, although a promising one, Utah, 206 yards a game right now on the ground, is going to try and punch Arizona in the face over and over. They're going to try to possess the ball. They're going to try to slow this thing down. And they're going to be like, we're at home, man. Good luck making explosive plays. Good luck getting off the field on 3rd down. We got the must making noise right here. Home game. Arizona is in for a tough test at Rice-Eccles Stadium. And the matchup favors Utah in so many ways.
Yeah, we all saw Caleb Williams' face when he was asked, what happens at night in Rice-Eccles? Noah Fafita is in position, and that defense more so is in position to be making the same kind of face.
We'll see how it plays out, but I'm trying to give you both sides of this. Arizona is dangerous in the passing game specifically.
And they're probably better than how they've played so far. They probably are.
Look,
we'll see.
That transitive property thing that I was joking about, people saying like, oh, well, Kansas State beat them up, and Kansas State's not even a very good team. Kansas State had a very bad game against BYU. I'm not going to take credit away from BYU because they forced a lot of those mistakes. You're not going to see Kansas State play that poorly most of this season. They're a better coached team than that. And I still believe that is true of Arizona. And guess what's going to happen to Utah at some point this year, fans? Utah's going to have one of those games where you're just like, that's not them. And other people are going to look at the box score and they're going to not have watched the game or whatever. And they're just going to be like, what the heck happened to Utah this week? That happens every year.
And if they're lucky, Utah wins that game still. But most of the time, you're not winning that game. What you hope for is they've got enough depth and veteran experience to be able to win games like that. But most of the time, you lose those games.
They maybe already had at least like sort of that game against Utah State.
Yeah, in the first half.
Because
most of the first half.
They started so slow. And so maybe if that's as bad as it gets, what you saw from Utah State, that's great. Utah's on its way to a Big 12 championship, college football playoff, and who knows what beyond that. But Arizona, don't look at Arizona pre-bye week and their game against Kansas State and say, that's the Arizona I'm going to get. I'm telling you, this is an Arizona team that knows they cannot match up with Utah at Utah's strengths. Oklahoma State thought that they could.
They came back to bite them.
This is a team in Arizona that knows, like, hey, guys, we have to run away from this team, not through this team. We got to get around them, not through them. And they've got the athleticism to try and make that happen. That's where Arizona is dangerous. That's why I've told you all through the preseason that Arizona is a scary matchup. It's still scary, but when Utah's offense and Arizona's defense are out there specifically, this should be a fun night at Rice-Eccles Stadium. This should be a fun night for Mekhi Bernard and maybe even Mike Mitchell. All right, we got a lot to get to on the show today. Gordy Chiesa is going to join us again to talk about the upcoming NBA season. He's always got a list. We'll take a closer look at this Utah Jazz roster and what they should be looking to accomplish in training camp, which begins next week. Sean O'Connell Show on a Thursday on ESPN 700.
Sean O'Connell Show continues on a Thursday, getting closer to another huge football weekend. BYU Baylor, Utah hosting Arizona. Poll questions are up regarding those games. Time to check in on the NBA. Training camp for the Utah Jazz and several other NBA teams beginning next week. NBA season is upon us. Gordy Chiesa, our resident NBA insider, kind enough to join us here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Gordy, how are you?
OC, I'm doing fine. Thank you.
All right. Looking at the Jazz specifically, and we talked about this a little bit a couple of days ago, but the goals that you should have specifically for each individual on this roster. We'll start with the big name, the big extension, the big signing. What should be the goal in training camp for Lauri Markkanen?
His main goal is to be an enforcer offensively, that this guy's ultra talented, and so don't defer often, which he's done over the years, to other players. Now, I'm not saying not play unselfish. I'm saying is that force your will and your talent skills on the opposition. And so a lot of times, he would pass the ball and just stand around. I'm saying get the ball and make a play because he's ultra talented. So I'd say be more aggressive offensively, especially in the fourth quarter when it's clutch time.
And in practice, look, I don't know anything about how these NBA practices are structured through training camp with load management, with trying to keep guys healthy, and especially in an Olympic cycle. I'm sure the teams are going to be extra careful about that. But what in practice specifically? You're running the drills with Lauri Markkanen. What drills are you deciding are going to help him with exactly what you said, being more aggressive, especially in the fourth quarter, not deferring offensively?
See, when the ball in the drills, to teach the player to be aggressive, when the ball swung to you like we call it a swing pass, and the defense is already moved and shifted, that's a great time to go organize one-on-one. And let's not forget, he's an 88% foul shooter. So a lot of times the defensive player is coming from giving help to now close out defense, and usually often they're not in the stance. So I'm describing there in a drill is a catch-and-go drive or catch-and-go pull-up or catch-and-go a rainbow three. And so we would do drills to teach players that an elite scorers on the second side of the floor be ultra-aggressive.
So if Lauri is going to be the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak, for this Utah Jazz team, if he's your number one option, he's your main guy, who's number two?
Colin Sexton. That guy is so underrated. That guy is like fiery, and that he plays with emotion, and when he gets in the lane, only good things happen. And so he's the second option. So him and Lauri Markkanen should be a partnership on the floor. Now, the problem, is that the point guard, in other words, when you're really a point guard, is that you're so conscious of getting the ball to the star scorers in space, in rhythm. Just like in the NFL, when you pitch it out to the running back, it's in space and in rhythm. So this is the exact same thing. Every sport's the same way. And so Keontae George, his development he's got to shoot less early in the shot clock and be more of a facilitator to get these guys involved in space and rhythm. Then on a short clock, Keontae George be ultra aggressive to get into the lane or shoot over the top of the defense to make a play. And that's the maturation of it. A star scorer like Lauri Markkanen should never go in the fourth quarter 2 more possessions not touching the ball.
We talk in all sports about how your biggest improvement is often made from year 1 to year 2, right? You get all the rookie jitters out of your system, and you get you're bona fide as a pro. Who do you think has the biggest leap or needs the biggest leap forward from their rookie year for this Utah Jazz squad?
Jella Hendricks. He showed some spark last year as a capable three-point shooter and really athletic, bouncy rebounder. And let's not forget, he's so young, is that he'll turn 21 on November 22nd. So he's 20 years old when he played last year. So he's the guy that we should all look at to see if he makes that quantum leap from being a rookie into the second season. Usually speaking, when you're a rookie in any sport, you can't believe how good the players are you play against all the time. You heard about them, but when you actually line up against them, it's a whole different situation. And also the pace of the game is always incredibly faster. And so Taylor Hendricks is the guy that we're going to have a bird's eye view as far as his growth. The Jazz need him to play well for them this season. And the reason why, besides being the 9th pick of the draft in 2023, but he does have talent.
Gordy Chiesa, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things Jazz as the NBA season ramps up next week. Training camp's opening, and it won't be long until officially the regular season is tipping off here in Salt Lake City. And then when that happens, the Delta Center becomes a dual sport arena, at least for the time being. You got Utah Hockey Club and you got the Utah Jazz. I do not envy the facilities managers and the grounds crew, so to speak, the folks who have to put the floor down over the ice and that back and forth. Gordy, you've been around the NBA a long time. Does that ever affect anything, like how quickly you can get in for shoot around when you've got a hockey arena that also hosts NBA games and vice versa?
Yeah, very much. Well said. It does. So that what you've got to do is you've got to teach the players that no matter we have to walk through that day, whether at the other team's practice center or at a college arena, it's irrelevant. And so a huge factor with a young team and or a mature team, it doesn't matter where we practice, whether it's live practice, let's say on a road trip back east, or the day of a walkthrough at another arena. And that you want to get shots up. If that happened, you practice, just say the narrative. You had to practice at the facility as far as the practice center, is that get there earlier that night to get some shots up earlier to get used to the rims and the line, the sighting line of the baskets right now. That's why it's so important that coaches understand and they teach the players from day one. So, Sean, a long, long time ago when I coached, is that we used to teach the players from day one about all the obstacles that you're going to go through. Sometimes there's travel problems where there's mechanical problems and the plane doesn't take off until 3 hours later or the very next day. We've been in situations, Sean, so you've been also where you get to the arena to play the game at, before game time, 2.5 hours. It's a different preparation, and guess what? You play a great game. So much is no matter what happens, the rigors of travel or in poor health, you've got to be able to perform. And so we train the players mentally and make an issue about it early in the preseason. That's why it's so important. I know it's only preseason games, but what it does, though, it helps the players get used to the rhythm of a game day. That's why it's so important to play road games on a mini road trip. So the Jazz play 2 road games in the preseason, just very similar to what happened, but much longer in a regular season as far as being on the road in hostile environment. And, Sean, I love hostile environment. I love it.
Gordy, October, November are wonderful for general sports fans because, as we talked about earlier in the week, you get basketball ramping up, you got hockey back, you got postseason baseball, football season is in full swing. And here in Salt Lake City, it's a unique time because the community, the sports community, kind of crosses over. And we saw now that NBA athletes are back in town or getting back in town, you see they make appearances. The faces show up. And you see all of a sudden these super tall guys walking around on the sideline at a Utah football game or down at BYU. Lauri Markkanen was out at the preseason hockey game the other night. And, it's community outreach, so to speak. Donovan used to show up famously at high school football games. As a member of a coaching staff, as part of a team, like a whole team unit, what's your stance on these guys doing that? Do you encourage them? Do you say, hey, if you're going to go out to these things, you got to understand what's coming your way? I mean, do you try and force guys to do it so that they're more endeared to the community? How is it managed in-house for the Utah Jazz and other NBA teams when they have opportunities to go show their face in the community?
We counsel the players about being professional 24/7. Yes, so we want you to go out to the community and outreach as far as going to other sporting events or young people's as far as events. but act professional, because there's always people looking at you. And obviously, with the digital society right now, you're one click away from on a digital phone as far as you being going viral of what you're doing, either positively or, God forbid, negatively. So we encourage it, but we also counsel the players, act professional 24/7. The last part about that is that forget about the players, also the coaches. Sean, I love to go to a hockey game. You forget that back 1,000 years ago when I was a college coach, I used to be at two hockey schools, Providence College and Dartmouth College, which are two really high-level hockey schools. So I'm a wannabe hockey fan.
I like that. Wannabe hockey fan.
Emphasize, Sean, wannabe.
We're going to put that on Gordy Chiesa's business card moving forward. NBA expert,
Sean,
wannabe hockey fan.
Sean, before I begin, I got so much mileage. I've been talking to you in the last 2 months or so. Is that, remember we did that fun thing for the Olympics in studio where we took a sport as far as we knew nothing about? And
yeah.
So I took fencing. So now when I walk on the street sometimes, people stop me and ask me freaking fencing questions.
Because you're the resident fencing expert, Gordy. It's a burden.
Allegedly. Emphasize allegedly.
It's your burden to carry now. We did that to you, and I'm proud of it. I love that.
I love it. The answer is I learned something about fencing. And you know about Notre Dame. Forget about football. Notre Dame is that they're one of the best schools in the country as far as developing Olympic-type fencers, men and women.
Of course. We learned that because of Gordy Chiesa, and we'll get fencing updates probably every time we talk to Gordy now, whether we want them or not. Full NBA season swing. We're right in the heat of a playoff race, whatever. We're talking fencing with Gordy Chiesa here on ESPN 700. Gordy, I want your big picture view of the NBA at large. Is this the Boston Celtics' year to win again?
No. I know people are right now driving off the road in I-15. Gordy's tripping right now. What's he talking about? I'm going to go showing the arithmetic. All right. I know I'm not a math major, but for the last 6 seasons, there's been a different NBA champion. So, for example, 2019 Raptors. 2020, Lakers in the bubble. 2021, Bucks. 2022, Warriors. 2023, Nuggets. 2024, Celtics. So there's 6 straight years of a different NBA champion. So I'm going to go by the metrics and the mathematical part of it. Even though the Celtics are absolutely dominant last year, they played incredible. They won 64 games. They finished 17-3 in the playoffs. They were sensational and well-deserved. My instincts tell me that they're not going to. They're going to be an elite team, but they're going to fall short. So the question is, who do I like in the East? I like the Knickerbockers in the East to get out of the East.
Hold on. The New York Knicks, as an NBA Finals team, in Gordy Chiesa's view, this is like the NBA's dream. The NBA has long wanted the New York Knicks to be back and a factor and an NBA Finals team and even an NBA champion. And by the way, if that happens, what Jalen Brunson did for this squad, if they spent that money the right way and it leads to a championship, what a legend.
Yeah, very much also. So if you're a Knicks fan, the last time you won the championship was 1973. So it's been a long, long time ago. So here's the Knicks starting lineup, just quickly. Jalen Brunson, you mentioned, alluded to, tremendous, unbelievable All-NBA player. They added Mikal Bridges from the Nets. So he's an elite defensive player and timely shooter. OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, and now Mitchell Robinson got hurt. He got hurt during last year. They did surgery. They're going to hold him out. So which means that they have to get mileage out of. They might swing over Julius Randle to be the center or start Jericho Sims, who's a hustle player. But here's their bench guys that are really good. Miles McBride, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, who averages 8.7 rebounds at 6'4.5", Precious Achiuwa. And then Cameron Payne they signed. So I like their 10-man rotation, and they are gritty. And you know so well, just like and I keep talking about the NFL because NBA is so similar. Besides the schematics of playing, so much is based on grittiness. And so to go deep in the playoffs in any sport, you've got to win ugly. And the teams that are gritty in every sport, they win ugly. And that's why they're good. Now, in the West, It's wide open. I'm going to lean towards the Thunder getting out of the West.
So maybe a New York Knicks versus Oklahoma City Thunder NBA championship for Gordy Chiesa. For all of you who are interested in the way those things play out on the betting lines, right now Oklahoma City actually has the second best odds. Boston Celtics are listed at plus 300, OKC plus 700. The Knicks are considered the fourth best, at least by Vegas right now. They're, tied for third. Philadelphia and New York, both with plus 900 odds to be in the NBA Finals. So Gordy Chiesa thinks the Knicks are a little better than maybe the rest of Las Vegas does. But you're my sharp, Gordy. You're the guy that I'm listening to when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Now, the Nuggets are saying, forget about this. The Nuggets is that we were good last year. We were a little bit injured in the playoffs. We think we're going to be good again this year, and they should. Now, they added 2 wild card players in Russell Westbrook and Dario Saric. And so the question is, Westbrook, Sean, is it the good Westbrook or the bad Westbrook? And remember, Nikola Jokic, he rules the roost there. So no matter what happens, he is the main guy. There's no gray area who the main guy is. So the question is, can Westbrook help them, especially in a playoff game where he's such a force of nature? Now, Westbrook plays to both sides during the same game. So, for example, the back of his uniform says the Denver Nuggets, and the front says the team they're playing against. That's the problem.
This NBA season is going to be a little bit strange because you've got a couple of guys on the move. Klay Thompson is the one that interests me the most, right? He was such an integral part of the Splash Brothers and that run and that Warriors mini dynasty. He was so Bay Area, it's not even funny. Guy took a boat to work. I mean, he was absolutely beloved in the Bay Area, and now he's a Dallas Maverick. And I don't know what he's going to be as a player. I don't know what he's going to do for that team. It's just a strange thing when you see a guy who's a staple in one uniform suddenly appearing in another. Klay Thompson and his team, the Dallas Mavericks, are they a factor in the West?
Very much, absolutely. And so they also, besides, so they basically, Klay Thompson is going to start for them. So they're going to start the season in the first game with Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, Klay Thompson, P.J. Washington, and Daniel Gafford. But now they added Spencer Dinwiddie, and to go along with Dante Exum, Jaden Harden, this young guy named Nazi Marshall, who's off the bench as like an energy guy, and Maxi Kleber. And then Derek Lively, the young guy that played sensational as a rookie last year. So they're 11 deep. So they will be an absolute force. Now, you mentioned about Klay Thompson. It's like bittersweet where, remember now, the Warriors did give him that contract last summer, 2 years at $25 million a year. Basically, it was really $52 million. He turned it down. And then he took less money. He felt insulted by it. Took less money. He took 3 years by the Mavs. This July, he took 3 years, $11 million a year, $33 million, because he felt as a jilted lover. So now he's with this new team. He should play great for them because he's going to go open looks. Because when Kyrie penetrates and double team Luka Doncic, he'll be the recipient of getting those kick out passes for feet set splash as far as shooter.
I alluded to this earlier. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. We're coming off an Olympic cycle. We saw, obviously, a gold medal run for Team USA. Serbia and Jokic had a deep run as well. They've had plenty of time, I guess, since then, but it's a year-round basketball calendar. You know that better than anyone does. Do you manage things differently for the guys who spend a lot of time on the Olympic front if you're an NBA franchise?
Very much. The answer is yes. I alluded to it right now with John Stockton and Karl Malone. There were, later on, it was Carlos Boozer and Darren Williams. I didn't coach those. I coached Carlos Boozer, but I didn't coach Darren Williams. So what the Jazz did with everyone, those Olympians, is that they held them out, usually speaking, at the start of training camp. They were there as far as visually to watch the concepts being put in, the teaching points, but they really didn't practice as far as the full court segment until, usually speaking, till the first preseason game. they'd be in selected drills, but no like heavy hitting as far as, just as far as getting bumped and poked off balance, etc. And the reason why is the lower part of your body. Usually speaking, when you have issues with your body, most times it's your lower legs, meaning what? Your knees, shins, ankles. And that's from what? The stress of running down the floor all year round. So I always counsel young players, you've got to rest your body. Besides your mind, you've got to rest your body, especially in season where you've got to do nothing, where sometimes in the afternoon you put your feet up on your favorite couch and rest your legs. And because the reason why your legs are a huge part of your component to be successful. So the answer is they will rest some of these guys in some of the drills and also definitely the full court segment.
Last thing before I let you go, Gordy, who's the best player in the NBA this year?
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the OKC Thunder.
Woo!
And so, yeah, he's a tremendous player. He finished second last year for the MVP voting. And, Sean, this is my list today about MVP voting. Here's a quick list as far as for today. The top 15 NBA players to never win a Most Valuable Player award in the regular season. So these guys are all either in the Hall of Fame or when they retire will be in the Hall of Fame of all time. 15, George Gervin. 14, Walt Frazier. 13, Paul Pierce. 12, Rick Barry. 11, Jason Kidd. 10, Chris Paul. 9, Kawhi Leonard. 8, Patrick Ewing. 7, John Stockton. 6, John Havlicek. 5, Scottie Pippen. 4, Dwayne Wade. 3, Isaiah Thomas. 2, Elgin Baylor. And 1, Jerry West. So these 15 players are incredible, never won a regular season MVP award. Quickly, in jazz basketball, Karl Malone won it twice, MVP for the league, back in 1997 and also 1998. So the question is, more importantly, right now in 2025, the defending MVP is Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. But on his heels, I'm saying it's going to be this year Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and second is going to be Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks.
I love it. And, of course, we reserve the right for Gordy to change his MVP predictions at any time, as we are not even yet into an NBA season. Gordy, it's always lovely catching up with you, my friend. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Sean. Peace out. Thank you.
Great stuff, as always, from Gordy. Jazz training camp beginning next week. On the other side, we'll give you some sound from Utah football practice earlier in the week. Don't go anywhere. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. Welcome to the second hour of the Sean O'Connell Show on a Thursday. I'm Sean O'Connell, producing the show today. My guy, James Peterson. Eric Weddle coming in about 25 minutes here on the show. Looking forward to that conversation as we do every single week. Nate Orchard still set to join us on the program. Going to be a fun day as we get you ready for a football weekend that somehow, unexpectedly, features two top 25 teams here in the state of Utah in high-profile Big 12 contests. Utah hosting Arizona, the night game at Rice Eccles, the blackout uniforms. I think they're going red helmets, James. Is that right? Did we see that look? It's black pants, black jerseys, red helmets?
Yeah, it's an interesting look. Have they done that before? Do you remember?
I don't know. I don't know if they have or not.
I feel like they've always just done the all black with the blackout.
Yeah, I like the red lids. Red is the school's color. The all red uniforms are my favorite. Night game, though. Night game. I am less a fan of black uniforms than probably anyone you've ever met. I don't like blackout uniforms unless black is the predominant color of your team. Like the Raiders can wear black, the Ravens can wear black. I'm cool with that. I guess Appalachian State has a lot of black in their uniform concept. Everyone can create these black uniforms, and everyone has at this point done blackout uniforms.
Yeah.
Utah, I'm all right with it because black is like the tertiary color, right? It's red, it's white, and then there's always been some black, the striping, the lettering, things like that. When Notre Dame wears a blackout uniform, which I don't think they have yet, I will cry. That's ridiculous. Stanford doing blackout uniforms when they have two colors and they've only ever had two colors, and it's that crimson and cream or whatever. Oklahoma.
Well, Cardinal,
sorry, yeah. Not crimson. Cardinal and cream. Like, if you're Oklahoma, don't wear a blackout uniform.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like it's just gotten a little tired, the fact that the first time everyone did a blackout game, or the first few times everyone did a blackout game, it was cool. But now it's like, does every school have to have a blackout game?
Well,
does every school have to have a black uniform? Thankfully, to your point about Notre Dame, schools like Penn State and Notre Dame have not delved into that. Notre Dame does, their version is their green alternate jerseys,
which is bad luck, by the way. When they wear the green, they always play poorly.
But they look great. I like the green and gold look when they do that. But anyway, it's just a little tired for me. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to air a grievance against Utah doing it because it's the staple of a tradition now, but it's just, does every team have to have a blackout is kind of the way, and a black uniform, especially those ones that, like you said, it's not their primary color, and we've seen a bunch of those pop up over the last few years. You don't have to participate. It's okay.
I'm trying to think of the team, like Alabama has never done a blackout. Alabama does not alter their uniforms ever. Penn State, as you mentioned, keeps it mostly the same.
Ohio State in recent years has introduced a black uniform.
That's gross. That's so dumb.
I'm like, do gray.
The only
You're
black,
scarlet and gray. Like, they don't ever do a gray uniform. Like, if you want to do a special alternate uniform and a gray out, like, do your gray. That's what you're known as, is the scarlet and gray, not the scarlet and gray and black.
The only black that should be on an Ohio State uniform ever is the little Buckeye stickers on the helmet awards. That's the only black you should ever have.
Completely agree.
Welcome to Uniform Talk here on ESPN 700. I will say this. I think Utah equipment has done an incredible job. Like, everyone in the world tries to copy Oregon too much. And I think Utes equipment has done a really, really good job of finding this unique niche that, they've done blackout games, and I might not be the biggest fan of them. That's fine. I've also not been a huge fan of white helmets, but guess who turned out a beautiful white helmet? That the Rose Bowl white helmet was absolutely incredible. The Ute Proud white helmet, absolutely
always
incredible.
Good.
So good, right? So, like, I'm off of my white helmet hate for the University of Utah because they've executed it so incredibly. And the hand-painted thing,
so good.
That maybe somebody else was doing that before Utah or was doing that concurrent to Utah, and I'm just putting on the red goggles again. But, like, the Utah hand-painted, a tradition that happens every single year, it's awesome. And there were folks that didn't love the Must Flag version of the hand-painted helmet. There were folks who didn't love like the throw up the U hands version of the hand-painted. I like all of them. It's art, man.
The one that comes to mind for me is the Lauren McCluskey Angel Wings.
Awesome. Incredible.
In, 2019, whenever
Beautiful.
that was. Beautiful. A great tribute to Lauren McCluskey.
The USS Salt Lake City.
Oh, that was so good. And it was awesome that ended up being a classic game for Utah, too.
A stellar, incredible game. I just remember seeing, like, Devin Lloyd in that, like, slate gray uniform, which you never see. You never see at Utah. You never, like, gray, as you mentioned with Ohio State. That's part of their color scheme. Like, you can find gray stuff that's Ohio State-themed stuff, right? Like, their basketball team will wear gray uniforms and whatnot. You never see Utah in an official athletic capacity in gray, and that uniform was so sick. And the helmets, I guess people were like, it doesn't play that well on TV. I don't care. That thing, that honor, first of all, what it was honoring, the USS Salt Lake City, it was just a gorgeous, artistic, beautiful uniform. And then, of course, the night went exactly how you needed it to go.
Yeah, and that's probably maybe the only exception to go against your color scheme for a game is if you're honoring something that it makes more sense to have gray because of the color of the ships. You know, the ship USS Salt Lake City that was part of World War II in the war in the Pacific. So
saw more conflict in the Pacific than any other ship,
which I had no idea before that, and that is so cool.
And they brought, what was it? I think there's 3 surviving sailors at that time, and 2 of them showed up at the game or something like that. Just
what a night!
So great, so wonderful. By the way, little bird, and I promise we're going to get to actual discussion of Utah, Arizona here.
Wait, the uniform talk isn't actual Utah, Arizona discussion?
A little bird has told me that this year's hand painted is going to be a big hit.
Okay. I'm excited for it.
I'm efforting some infiltration, getting my own eyes on them. I'm not the one who will ever like try to sneak a picture and put it out there. I'm not trying to scoop anybody or break any news. I think it's great that Utes Equipment gets to announce their own uniform combos, and that social media presence is a good one. So I'm not trying to scoop anything on that. I just want to, for my own edification, I want to get my eyes on this year's hand-painted before they're public.
What we ought to do, though, for the show is see if we can get someone from Utes Equipment on the show to break. They can break it at the same time that we do.
I will say
that would be pretty cool.
I will make this commitment. If we can get Utes Equipment when they're going to announce the hand-painted uniform,
they can break it on social media. We can break it on the radio.
If they will bring it down, because we've got our YouTube channel now.
Uh-huh.
If they will bring down that getup, I will do the whole show wearing the helmet.
Let's do it. We're gonna get Alonzo on that. I'm sure he knows someone that we could do that. You know people too.
Kelly and company, they listen.
Yeah.
They're listeners to ESPN 700. So if you're tuning in right now,
let's make this happen.
I will do the whole show in your hand-painted helmet. What an honor that is for Utes Equipment. They're like, why would we care about you doing a radio show in our helmet? I just want to see it, all right?
And apologies in advance if it sounds a little muffled on the radio that day.
It would not.
It won't.
Would not. I will get,
just kidding.
I'll get a kicker face mask.
Oh, there we go.
So there's barely any interference. You know what I think I'm going to do, by the way? So like, we have these helmets here in the studio. I have one of the old hand-painted helmets in my home office. I think I'm gonna see if I can get one of these bad boys, take the mask off it, and just use it as like my motorcycle helmet.
Ooh, yeah.
I would look cool driving around town with just a maskless football helmet on, right?
We need to get what was your number, 49?
You could take your pick.
We need to get your number on the helmet. All of your numbers on the helmet.
People are like, why do you have 5 numbers on a helmet when you were not even there for a whole regular career? I'm just like, it's a long story. Okay.
You got to get you a Weber State great helmet too for your motorcycle helmet.
I do need that. That one, like my number on the roster and on film, and that actually all matched up. All right, I was number 40 at Weber State. There's no dispute there. There was no crossover. There was no changing. It was just that. All right, doesn't matter. Let's talk Utah, Arizona. Okay, we've probably spent a lot of time, maybe excessive amounts of time, focusing on Noah Fafita, Tetairoa McMillan, and Quali Conley, their running back. Right now, good average yards per carry, bad in the Kansas State game, less than 50 yards total for him in that game. But because of how honest you have to keep things and how much they spread you out, he's running against favorable box counts very often, and he's making good on that. He's like top 10 in the Big 12 Conference in average yards per carry. So you can't completely ignore the run game for University of Arizona. I also spent a lot of time convincing you that, hey, this Arizona team is not that great defensively, and especially against the run, you should be able to eat because they are 14th right now in the Big 12 Conference out of 16 teams in rush defense. We don't know officially. We haven't been told who is going to start this game at the quarterback position for Utah. We were told in the Kyle Whittingham press conference at the beginning of the week that the playbook has grown significantly for Isaac Wilson. So if he is the guy, you don't have to worry about limiting things anymore. You don't have to worry about keeping it simple for the freshman anymore. He has attacked the learning curve, which I thought was a great quote. He's really attacked that learning curve. And that's what you want to see from the future of your program.
Absolutely.
A guy that's like, yes, I know my role this year is to be a competent backup to Cam Rising, but there's no reason for me to take this slow. On a personal level, Isaac Wilson has to be looking at this thing as a massive opportunity for him because there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding Cam. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the future of Cam with the hand, the knee, the whatever else is going on with him. And so it's kind of a why wait situation, I think, by now. And I know that the Wilson family was content to be patient with Isaac's development at the University of Utah, but you can't control these things. You can't control the injury situation. You can't control what's happening in front of him. And the only thing that you can take ownership of and control is your own preparedness.
Yeah, what's the Teddy Roosevelt quote, at least from Night at the Museum, anyway? The Robin Williams, Teddy Roosevelt.
Here we go. No, here we go.
Some men are born great. Others have greatness thrust upon them. That's what's happening with Isaac Wilson with this injury. He's getting this opportunity.
Is that
here.
an actual Roosevelt
I don't know.
quote?
It's the Robin Williams, Teddy Roosevelt quote. Some men are born great, Larry.
I didn't tell you this, James. One of my best friends, lifelong friend of mine. We were on the phone the other night, and he was just like, hey, by the way, your guy James, that's my guy.
He's my guy.
He's
I don't know this guy's name yet. But
Justin. His name's Justin.
Justin's my guy. Thank you, Justin.
He's like, he's my guy with those obscure movie quotes. I love that stuff. And I'm just like, dude, nobody understands the movie references except for you and James, apparently. James, you are the first person in pop culture media to quote the Robin Williams Teddy Roosevelt from Night at the Museum. Nobody has ever drawn a quote in any sort of any setting for grown-ups.
It's a great quote. It works perfectly for this situation. By the way, apparently the quote is much longer. The real quote is apparently much longer than that. They made it shocker. They made it much more palatable and more exciting for the movie.
Breaking news, they dumbed things down for Night at the Museum. It's not all historical fact. Wow.
I think it's even too long to actually read it on the air because we might run out of time for this segment. So.
Wow, that's fantastic. All right, back to the point. So Isaac Wilson, if he ends up starting this game, has attacked this learning curve, and the offense is going to be available to you from a play calling standpoint. Now, I want everyone to prepare for, and I think I said this on the show yesterday as well, I want everyone to prepare for the eventuality, the certainty that a freshman quarterback is going to make freshman mistakes.
Absolutely.
You cannot back off of your enthusiasm for the future of Utah football or your excitement about Isaac Wilson when he makes a freshman mistake. And I think that the team and the coaching staff and the fan base even, which is always the least reasonable of all of those things, right? The fan base is always like the lunatics. I think everyone so far has done a pretty good job of looking what Isaac Wilson is and saying, yes, that's encouraging. It's not great yet, but we think we see glimmers of what it could be. And they've kind of just kept their expectations in that box, which I love. Right? We've had one or two texters weigh in and just be like, no, it doesn't matter if he's a freshman. He's got to be an all-conference guy if you want to win the Big 12. I don't really buy that, okay? Everything happens in its own time, in football, in life, in whatever.
Well, and it's certainly helped that because he has had some freshman mistakes. They just haven't been ones that have cost you a game yet.
Yes.
So it's certainly helped that they've won through his growing pains a little bit here. And that's where it makes me curious what the reaction's going to be if the majority of the fan base is still going to have that patient approach and assume, if Isaac starts the next few weeks here and Cam can't get back by that time, if it costs the Utes a game at some point that he's the starter or he's in the game in the fourth quarter, I'm curious to see how patient the fan base is going to react to that, but it is encouraging that so far they've had that patience and had the kind of looking at things through the right lens at a talented but still true freshman quarterback.
The expectation this year, and we've maybe hammered too much on the theme of our own predictive abilities being terrible. The overall theme of this year coming into the year was you're going to be good because of your quarterback. You're going to be a championship contender because Cam Rising is back. And the reality of the situation is if you really want to be an elite team in college football, you can't lean too hard on that because of any one player. And yes, there are teams that do that because the quarterback position is so important. But if we're talking about a college football playoff team, if you're talking about a team that we thought at the beginning of the year might even win a playoff game, right? And certainly is going to win this Big 12 championship. That was sort of the assumption for the Utah fan base. And it was all because of your quarterback. And our expectation was, in spite of some of the other questions you have about this team, because of your quarterback, you're going to be just fine. That has flipped, at least in these past couple of weeks. And I think after the bye week, we can address this again, and we'll see where Cam is at with the hand and things like that.
You'd hope if he doesn't go this week that after a bye week, he'd be able to be ready to go. Obviously, we all hope he's ready to go this week, but you'd hope that at least by Arizona State.
The flipping of that narrative or that expectation is not altogether bad for Utah. I'm not going to go so far as to say you can win in spite of your quarterback, because your quarterback has to be bad for you to say in spite of that quarterback you're winning. But you're winning these. You've won these last couple of games because of Mekhi Bernard, because of your defense, because of your offensive line, because of things that are not your star quarterback, because your star quarterback is on the sideline watching the freshman play. And maybe that freshman evolves into being a star quarterback, but we're not ready to call him that yet.
Probably not this year, right?
And that's totally fine. Again, the learning curve, you have to be patient with it. When you're a parent, when you're a puppy owner, when you're a whatever, probably kindergarten teacher, I don't know, I never did that. You just realize and you accept the fact that, wow, it's going to start out, they're not going to know what they're doing at all. And then I'm going to be here and I'm going to cultivate an environment in which that success becomes more commonplace and the learning happens at a natural rate. And eventually, this puppy stops chewing up my shoes. And eventually, that kid stops peeing his pants, And quarterbacks, and freshman quarterbacks especially, you kind of have to be willing and patient in that way. And I think that, again, I applaud all of you and all of us. I'll say all of us together have kind of seen, all right, 5 interceptions, 5 touchdowns for Isaac Wilson. That is not, if that were Cam Rising's stat line,
we'd be out of our minds.
People would be going in panic mode.
What happened to Cam?
But you're looking at it and you're saying, all right, but look how look at this bright spot of 300-yard games in a row for Mekhi Bernard. And look what this defense is doing in shutting down opposition. And I the more I think about it, the more I'm just bothered by the fact that Oklahoma State made that game close at the end.
Same.
That defensive performance was going to be one we could talk about as like the reason this team remains a Big 12 championship favorite. And everyone in the country would just be like, did you see what they did to Oklahoma State?
In Stillwater,
at Boone Pickens Stadium, in that loud environment with the freshman quarterback. Did you see what that defense did? Nearly pitched a shutout. And look, that's why college football is so great. Because in college football, the unpredictable is predictable. You know someone's going to be like, and heave their sigh of relief 5 minutes too early, and all of a sudden someone's running behind them, and oh no, now it's a game again. But the more I think about it, the more bothered I am by it.
It reminded me a lot of the Baylor game last year, but just in reverse. Utah was down 13-3 in the fourth quarter of that game, or at least early third quarter, and stayed at 3 or 6 points until about 7-8 minutes left in the game, and then they got 17 more points, 14, 17 more points, whatever it was, to win the game. It kind of reminded me of that, except that in reverse, and also that the team that was up the whole time ended up winning this time. But it reminded me a lot of that, where it's like one team's offense is awful, and then all of a sudden, whoa, the offense is scoring. How did this happen? That classic college football thing you were talking about.
Again, the unpredictable becomes predictable because that's what college football is. That's one of the things that separates college football from the NFL.
Yes.
Right?
NFL, it's almost sharp all the time, unless one team's just super dominant. You don't get a team that's awful the whole game all of a sudden turn something on. Well, prevent defense, maybe. Maybe you do.
It's less common. It's less
common. Yeah.
But this defense and this offensive line performing the way that it has, and Mekhi Bernard really becoming, I think, what Utah fans hoped he would be like 3 years ago. It's a great story in college football. Allows you to look at this season and look at this game against Arizona and say, we're not going to win. We don't have to win because of our quarterback. And maybe Isaac Wilson makes the plays so that I sound like an idiot on Monday when we're reacting to this. And maybe we win a game, Utah wins a game because of the quarterback. But comparing what we talked about in the preseason, it doesn't matter that they might be a little thin at corner, might be a little thin at running back because of the quarterback, because of Cam Rising. And that was unfair to Cam. That was unfair to the rest of this team to think that he is the solution to all of your problems, because guess what's happened? Cam Calhoun and Scooby Davis and Mekhi Bernard and the offensive line and all these people are just like, yes, we wish Cam was here too, but we have a hell of a lot to say about whether we're going to win or lose these games. And I think all of my expectations now, James, for this matchup against Arizona are the questions about everything besides the quarterback position. That's still a big hanging question mark. But I'm going to try to predict and decide whether or not Utah can win this game based on everything else. And we took the lazy approach in the preseason and said, well, no, Cam Rising is going to be there, so you're going to be fine.
It'll just save everybody. By the way, isn't it great to see that the two biggest question marks, depth-wise at least, of position groups, cornerback and running back, are also, I was saying in the preseason OC, they're also the positions that Utah is just always good at. Even if it in the preseason it looks like, that's going to be a little weak spot, they always turn out to be a strength on the team. Well, it's turned out that way again. And that's even with a very important guy in Kenan Johnson going out for the season in the first half of the first game. So it's great to see. And again, it's just Morgan Scalley and Jim Harding, Quinton Ganther, Andy Ludwig. They're doing the staple things right once again. It's one of those things that, like Joel Klatt likes to say, death taxes Utah football, death taxes good running game, good secondary.
I'll say this. I don't want to fall into the trap of trying to compare this Utah football team with like the Nick Saban dynasty at the University of Alabama. I don't want to go too far in that regard. But I do want to point out the fact that those teams were incredible regardless of who was playing quarterback for those teams. They always had someone who was competent. They rarely had someone who was special at the quarterback position. And that's evidenced by the fact that, it took a lot of years before Alabama, even under Nick Saban, even when they were winning a championship every other year, a lot of years before the Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa thing happened. They had a bunch of quarterbacks who couldn't start in the NFL, couldn't stick in the NFL. And I realize that's a very high bar to set, but that's the bar, right? Are you a great team because of your quarterback? A lot of college football teams have to say yes. Utah was saying yes all through the preseason and has said yes in the past because of Cam Rising. And that's still the case. When Cam Rising is there and available and healthy, you're great because of that quarterback, but you're also great because of everything else on this team, and that coaching staff you just mentioned is probably the real number one reason. Lots more to get into regarding this Arizona game. I always like to pick the brain of people who are much smarter football-wise than me when talking about matchups like this, and we're lucky enough to have one of those people joining us next. Eric Weddle, Utah football legend, head coach of the Rancho Bernardo Broncos. I think future NFL Hall of Famer? Anyway, Weddle joins us next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700. Sean O'Connell Show continues on a Thursday here on ESPN 700, your home of the Utes, your home of the legendary Utes, like this next guest of ours, Eric Weddle, who joins us every single week. E-Dub, how are you?
Sean, what's up, my brother? Doing good. Excited for this weekend. Got a bye week. Can relax, get away from the game, and watch the Utes, and enjoy a stress-free weekend.
I love that. All right, it's a tradition on the show at this point, so we're going to talk about it. Rancho Bernardo Broncos, you are the head coach. First loss of the season last week, am I right?
Yeah. It was an utter disaster of a coaching job by me. When you're the head coach and the defense coordinator and offense coordinator, and you lose 3-0, you should fire your OC. But it's me, so I can't fire myself. But I could if we have another few games of 0 points on the board. It definitely will be brought up. But yeah, the boys fought. We played a tough team, and reality is a number of factors. But at the end of the day, didn't coach a good enough game and put our boys in position, and we'll move on. Hopefully, get better from it. And now we got league play the next 5 weeks, so we'll see where we're at.
I looked up the score for this game, and I saw 3-0, and I was immediately transported back to a frozen tundra of LaVelle Edwards Stadium. 3-0 Holy War. Was a Brian Borison field goal, I think, was the only scoring in that game. What a nightmare.
Yeah, so we go to one of the coach's house after the games. He usually orders food and stuff, just kind of decompress. And I sit there and I immediately thought about that. And I said, hey, guys, just want to give you a fun fact. I've been a part of a 3-0 game, but on the other side. And then I went through the whole background of the game and how it went, and how we stopped the scoring streak, et cetera. And I was like, now I'm on the other side, so I kind of feel how BYU felt back in the day.
Oh, all right. Well, let's move on to the Utes and an exciting win in Stillwater. Isaac Wilson, game time decision, gets the start, and the young freshman, despite a couple of mistakes, played well enough to keep this team where it needed to be. Mekhi Bernard with another 100-yard game. Your thoughts on a big win over a ranked Oklahoma State team and that Utah performance?
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed just by the team, by the resiliency, by the toughness. You could tell the brand of football that we play is just on another level than anybody else, and I correlate it to USC losing to Michigan at Michigan, and Michigan just plays Utah football, and that's why USC lost, because they can't handle the trenches, and having the ball run 47 times at them is just typical of a USC loss. So going into Slaughter in a hostile environment with a true freshman quarterback, being told 20 minutes before the game, and to be able to play at a high enough level of winning football is outstanding. And I mean, we talk about defense and what we stand for, and the job that Morgan and those coaches have done, but that was just a performance like any other outside of the last two series. Holy smokes, I was just amazed by the team defense, the hitting, the tackling. We separate ourselves from everybody else, and it was evident there in a huge win.
It was really great to see. There was a lot of questions about what that environment was going to do. You know, there's familiarity with a lot of these Pac-12 venues, and you know how loud a certain place is going to be, and you know how hot it could get down in Arizona and things like that. Well, Oklahoma State was hosting a game when it was 100 degrees plus humidity. The heat index down on the field was like 140. And my favorite thing about it, Dub, is that there was not a single mention of it by any of the players, by any of the coaches, even on the broadcast, because of the way that the teams played and because of the way that Utah kind of rose up. There was no like offering of that excuse, like, oh, he's dehydrated, he's cramping, he's running off, he's taking time off because of that. So the way that everybody managed this down to the training staff, I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right, and that's That stems from the head coach and our mentality. We don't make excuses. We're going to go in there, give it our best, and stick together, and then move forward. And it's so evident and really important when you're talking about team football and team sports is adversity is going to hit at some point. And are you going to stick together? Are you going to not point fingers? Are you going to try to reinvent the wheel after one loss? No, you just stay consistent. You get back to work, and you stay together. That's the most important thing on a football team is you stay together. So that doesn't surprise me. We don't make excuses. We just go out there and play.
Eric Weddle's our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking about that Oklahoma State win. I want to switch gears and talk about the University of Arizona coming to Rice-Eccles for a night game. Look, I said before the season started, this game for me is a scarier game, or as scary of a game at least, as the Oklahoma State game. Because I thought Oklahoma State is just kind of like it's like battling it out with your twin brother. Arizona does things a little bit differently. They like to spread you out. They like to throw the ball around the yard. They've got a future first-round draft pick at the wide receiver position and a quarterback who knows how to get him the ball, and they got great chemistry. So you're not playing against yourself. You're playing against a team that wants to run away from you instead of through you. What do you make of this Arizona team in this matchup?
Well, you're right on all accounts. And then the mere fact that they got after us last year, and they've shown the ability to create big plays against us, put up points. Obviously, our offense was inept last year, so I don't know if the full story is told from last year's game, and then them running up the score late in the game. I know for a fact that's been brought up and talked about, and you could even tell the players' comments leading into this game that it's been preached and talked about all offseason of becoming a better team from that experience. So I'm expecting a good close game just because of the style of football that they play, the talent that they have, but we're destined for great things this year, and they're just standing in the way.
All right, how do you limit somebody like Tetairoa McMillan? Saying how do you stop him feels like a foolish question because nobody's been able to, reliably at least, since he arrived at the University of Arizona. But if you make other people beat you, that's probably a higher percentage move. So how do you limit somebody like T-Mac?
Well, you can't always, as a coordinator or just coaching defense, you can't always say, well, we're going to roll coverage to him every play, and we're always going to have someone in his face. It's just not reality. There are going to be plays, calls where the corner's by himself. So what I would say going into it is anytime we have a roll coverage, which is either, cover 2, cover 6, or like a roll 3 where you're rolling, you're playing cover, 4 and a 3 deep, but you're rolling to that side, it would always go to 11. I think that's his number. So the rules going into the game that any 2-shell coverage or roll coverage that we're rolling to him, any of our match coverages, we're going to play, we call it a fist, where it's basically 2-man to that side. So now you have over-the-top help, and you're going to be playing trail man, and the corner can be super aggressive. So now you're covered in your quarters side checks within that. Now, if he's aligned at 2 or 3, you have your tools in your toolbox where you can double him. You can have over the top. You can play inside out. So you're going to have a plane within every call of your coverage calls. Now, when you're bringing pressure and you don't have that extra defender, you really got to over analyze that post player where it's going to be Te'o, that he aligns on that hash or he shades 11 side, and basically you tell everyone else that they're by themselves, they're playing true 0, and the corner to the side of 11, you're going to get help by the post player. So that's how you do it, and you hope the pressure gets there, and you hope you mix in the coverages so the quarterback doesn't really know from play in, from play out. But it's going to be a tough challenge, no doubt. But you want to make the other guys beat you. You don't want your stud to get the catches.
The the connection that he and Noah Fafita have is pretty incredible. They've been teammates since like 7th, 8th grade, which most of us can't even dream of moving on and playing high-level college football with our best friends and with the guys that you grew up with. They've made that a reality for themselves. Obviously, in college, that you usually don't have to deal with like 7 years of chemistry between a quarterback and a wide receiver. You did have to deal with that when you were defending in the NFL, guys, tandems that were together for a long time. How much does it change things in game play when they know each other and they know each other's thought patterns and things like that?
That's a huge advantage for the quarterback and receiver. Definitely. I mean, you've had so many reps, so many game time experiences that you know how each other is going to react to a certain look, to a certain coverage, to a certain technique, where that ball is going to be thrown so you can still be successful. So that's why it's going to take everyone on defense to limit these opportunities. It's not just on the secondary. It's on the front. It's on the coaches. Put them in good position. Not always. You got to mix in your coverages, and you got to execute. And when it's time to be one-on-one, you got to go win on your one-on-one battles. You can't always have help in a situation like this.
We don't know yet officially if it's going to be Cam Rising in that healing process with the hand or Isaac Wilson starting. Now, after this game for Utah, it's a bye week, and there's a lot of conversation about, like, hey, Isaac played well enough to win on the road. He can certainly play well enough to win at home. You get to the bye week undefeated, and you give Cam an extra week to heal, and that's when you really roll him out again. But you can't just assume that everything's going to go your way against Arizona, even though it is a home game and a night game. Eric Weddle is now the head coach, and Cam Rising comes and says, hey, I can go. It's not 100%, but I can go tonight. What decision do you make? Do you say, no, we're going to go with the freshman so you can get 100% healthy for this stretch run at a championship? Or do you say, you're the best player on the field, we got to get you out there even if you're less than 100%?
Yeah. If he shows the ability throughout the week that he can get the job done, then he's playing. You don't not play your best players if the best players can play. And it's not discredit to Isaac. He's shown he can win and play good enough, but this team's going to go as Cam goes, and I would expect him to be out there if he's ready to go. I'm not sure how that conversation went that he basically says that he can't go. But we'll see what happens. I'm confident in Isaac that he can get it done, though, from what I've seen. And so it's not like it was last year. I think he's only getting better and better, and it'll be interesting to see him at home. He's had his not so good moments at home, so hopefully that's in the past. But we're going to find out Saturday night who's leading us out there, and whoever it is, the expectation is to get a win. So we'll see what happens.
Last thing on this Utah-Arizona matchup, then I'm going to ask you an NFL question or two. Dorian Singer, he had his best game as a Ute in Stillwater, and it's nice to see him get more involved in this offense. We know what kind of a weapon he can be. A couple seasons ago, he was an Arizona Wildcat, and I wonder if there's extra juice in this game for him because he was a member of this roster not so long ago. He's going to be playing against some of his former teammates, which is a lot more of a norm in college football now than it was when you played. But again, you had this dynamic as an NFL player several times where you're going against your old squad. How much does it change things, and how much extra juice is there when that happens?
Yeah, there'll be extra motivation and extra juice for that game for him, and I would hope that they try to settle him in and get him the ball early so he could just play the game. I think a lot of times the emotions of your ex-teammates and ex-place and whatever the reasons why you're not playing there anymore, kind of the game and what your assignments are and what you're trying to accomplish. And that's, remember, it's about the team and winning the game by any means necessary. So it's definitely going to be added for him. And that's exciting. I mean, this has become a whole different dynamic of playing against old teams and teammates and coaches. So hopefully he channels that energy and uses it for a positive.
Eric Weddle for another minute or two here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things Utes and college football and a little NFL. Actually, before we move on to the NFL, a very odd dynamic has developed in college football, and this was one of the things that people feared when money became more involved. I'm sure you saw this. UNLV quarterback Matt Sluka has decided to take a red shirt. There's a dispute about whether or not UNLV fulfilled their financial promises. The Rebels say, yes, we did. He and his agents say, no, you didn't. The team says he's actually campaigning and trying to get more money beyond what we agreed to initially. So it's a he said type of situation. You don't see this, or you did not used to see this in college football, and I wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I just saw it this morning, and I'm just taken back that someone who's throwing for 40% completion percentage and thinking that they are the second coming of Peyton Manning in their minds that are going to go and for whatever reason want to demand this and that, I'd say kick rocks and good luck. That's what I would say. And when it becomes bigger than the team, then I don't want you a part of our team. I know the NIL has changed everything and the mentality, and it's trickled down to college or to high school. I mean, it's becoming so much of a me instead of a we type attitude, we as a team. And I don't know. I'm just like shocked that mid-season you're going to turn your back on everybody because you want more money. Like, hey guys, you're going to make money by making it to the NFL and creating a job and a life for yourself, not an extra $100K in college. Like these guys aren't getting advised very well. And I would say good luck. I wish you all the best, but don't ever step foot in my program again. That's what I would say.
All right. In the NFL, my favorite team, the San Francisco 49ers, is an absolute mash unit right now.
Oh, baby. Let's talk about the Niners for a quick second.
You're taking too much pleasure in my pain here, Dub. I don't like that. Like, what's the most hurt team you ever played on? Everybody in that building is injured. They're flying C-Mac to Germany to get his Achilles looked at. It's like we don't have an Achilles specialist in the United States. What is happening with the 49ers?
Hey, I just want to know, did Kyle Shanahan get up there like McVay has numerous times and saying, hey, injuries are part of the game. It would not be an excuse. We're going to go out there and play to the best of our ability, and we will not use this as a crutch. But now that's what I'm hearing from you after my Rams make a nice little comeback and save their season. That was a season-saving win against the Niners. But both teams are riddled with injuries. I don't know if I don't think C-Mac's going to play again this year. If he does, it's going to be not very good injury-wise. He's got something serious going on. You don't fly to Germany mid-season. It's not. If something seriously isn't going on. But I want to give some props to Purdy. I watched the entire game, and, man, the guy was – I think he was 22 of 30 for whatever, 300 or 280 or whatever it was. And they had 6 drops. Sean, they had 6 drops. The guy could have went 28 of 30 and played good enough to win that game, which was a classic. It was just good on good, even though half the teams were out. But huge win for the Rams. The Niners are going to be fine. They just got to manage these next few weeks and get their guys back. They're going to be okay. So stop worrying.
I don't like how much pleasure you're taking in the struggles right now. Okay, you got like this. You got like the laughter and the smile in your voice talking about the Niners having their problems. What surprises you?
I got the Niners fans are everywhere around here, so I'm back in a corner every single day, especially with my coaches.
All right, who surprises you more at 3-0? The Minnesota Vikings with Sam Darnold as their starting quarterback, or the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I would honestly say the Pittsburgh Steelers. I thought Minnesota was going to be really good because I am one of the few that think Sam Darnold is actually really talented and really good. And you put him with an offensive coordinator and a head coach that actually knows what they're doing, that it could it could punctuate what he's really good at. That's his play action game. That's under center. It's getting on the perimeter, and he has a really live arm. So I'm not so shocked about that, and I'm more shocked about the Steelers. They're winning with defense and subpar QB play, which is so it's hard to win like that in the league, but they're doing it. And gosh, TJ Watt is so incredible. Mike Tomlin, obviously one of the top 3 best coaches in the NFL forever. So I would say the Steelers.
All right, last thing before I let you go. Is it a high-scoring game between Utah and Arizona? Is it a low-scoring slugfest? How does it play out?
I think I was pretty close in the Oklahoma State. What did I say? Like 31-20 or something
like that. It was like, the 30 to 20, 30 to 24, something like that.
And that's it. Yeah, and that's what 23-3 would have been much better, but they came back and made it close. So I do think it's going to be some points back and forth. It's hard to hold a team like Arizona down for the entire game, just like Oklahoma State. They're going to get their plays. It's just, when does that happen? Do you match it? Do you stop their momentum throughout that game? If they score, do you come back and score and match it? Like that is such a huge moment in throughout games if you can match the momentum. So I'm thinking like a 35-28, 35-24. I still think it's a double-digit win, but there's going to be some points scored.
That's Eric Weddle, Utah football legend, head coach of the Rancho Bernardo Broncos. He's got an off week for that. Dub, love you, man. Thanks for your time.
Love you too, bro. Enjoy your weekend. I'll talk to you soon.
Great stuff, as always, from the Beard, Eric Weddle. All right, I'll ask you the same question. Low-scoring slugfest? Is it going to be a shootout? How does it play out, Utah versus Arizona? We asked this question last week, and we were wrong. The poll results were wrong. A lot of people thought that was going to be a high-scoring game. Nope. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700.
Sean O'Connell Show on a Thursday, marching closer to a game weekend. The mayor of Sac Lake City stops by. Nate Orchard, you know him, you love him. Nate, what's up?
What's going on? OC, how we doing, brother?
I'm doing all right. I got a couple games I want to talk to you about. Obviously, the one that was played in Stillwater, and then the one coming up as Arizona comes to Rice-Eccles for a night game. Nobody knows more about that than you, but let's talk about Stillwater first. The conditions were potentially nightmarish for this Utah team. Last-second change, or last-second decision, I should say, on Isaac Wilson getting the start. It's hot as hell. It's loud in Stillwater, all of that. Utah still comes away with a victory. Your thoughts on the game?
Well, to me, that's a Kyle-like fashion in some ways, right? You got to keep the opposing team on their toes, especially the media and the fan base with that, right? As far as what is going to happen, right? The excitement, the energy around it as to who is going to be the starter. You hope more than anything that it is Cam Rising, and then boom, here you are. You got Isaac Wilson, and with that, it just makes it that much harder for opposing teams as far as the preparation, right? Are you preparing for Isaac? Or are you preparing for Cam? And between the two players, the playbook we know is endless for Cam, but they're only so limited to Isaac that for opposing teams to defend against that and the matchup and preparation that gives them direction. But when you make it a last-second decision as to who your quarterback's going to be, it makes life a lot more challenging for opposing teams, without a doubt.
Well, it potentially makes it more challenging even for your own team, right? Because this offense had to split reps in practice. They got to give some to Cam. They also had to get Isaac Wilson ready, and then the line we were fed and what we were told, and I have no reason to disbelieve, is that it was really a game-time decision. Up until about 20 minutes before kick, there were even like well-sourced people saying it's going to be Cam Rising. And then, the mental shift that has to happen when you know it's going to be a backup. Whether it's a quarterback or any other position, we've talked about this before. When your guy, the perceived number one, the alpha dog, is no longer available for a particular game, that can change things. But this team stayed within itself and executed a game plan and didn't seem to really feel the effects of Cam Rising, at least not from an emotional standpoint. That impressed me, especially in a road environment.
Yeah, especially in a road environment where you have a few key defensive players that are down. You've got a true freshman quarterback starting, and to me, they just rallied the troops, right? Everybody stepped up. They carried their load and some. Michael Bernard coming away with 182 yards was just a man on a mission. And to see, Dorian Singers and some of the catches he was making was, that's always off the charts, and you just can't wait to find him and get him some more space. And Kiki doing his thing and the little wildcat formation, right? And then for Isaac to go 17 to 29 to 207, it's just another stamp in the book. It boosting confidence for him as far as there are things that he did that game in particular that he can check off the box where it really probably stretched him and getting out of his comfort zone. And getting out of your comfort zone, I mean, there's no better environment than Stillwater, and the success this team has had, and to come in as a true freshman and take the helm and show this team what you're about, and to prove yourself to your teammates, most importantly, and to the fan base what you can do. It's just all things exciting for Utah football.
I know that the final score is all the only stat that matters and the only thing that we have to pay attention to. I was bothered that if people didn't watch this game, they looked at it and said, oh, yeah, look, 22-19. We knew that was going to be a close game. It was not a close game. It was a dominant performance by Utah, smothering defense, ball control offense, dictating the pace, the pressure, everything. And then the foot comes off the gas pedal a little bit in that fourth quarter, and you allow two late scores that thankfully ended up being meaningless. But, Nate, how do you avoid that scary scenario if you're on this defense, if you're someone playing for this team, knowing that this exact scenario could unfold again through the rest of the Big 12 schedule? How do you stop yourselves from making that mental mistake of just easing up a little bit too much?
Yeah, no, I think you said it, right? You hit the nail on the head as far as you can't take your foot off the gas. You got to keep going. You got to dig deep. We've dominated all game. You look at the time of possession is always a big thing as coaches like to look at, right? Who's controlling the ball throughout the game? And for Utah to have it for 42 minutes compared to the 17 minutes that OSU had, I mean, there's no question. The yardage, through the roof. You hold a great running back, and that team to only 48 yards rushing. You're dominating through and through, and so you have to keep that momentum for all four quarters and some from time to time. But you've established your dominance, and so you just have to hold on to that. And as a team, is upholding each other to a high standard and making sure that you finish, till that clock strikes zeros and that final whistle blows, holding each other to that expectation. But again, there's a lot to learn from this game. Nothing makes it sweeter than, coming away from a victory. And so those are things the coaches can go back into the film room and prepare the guys. And as practice goes on throughout the week, the mentality behind, Arizona, this upcoming opponent, and just making sure we learn from these little mistakes that we've made throughout the game that can make us better heading into the season.
Were you bothered to see that Utah only got one sack in this game with how many times we saw Oklahoma State? I guess they didn't really throw the ball that often. They only attempted 19 passes, so that's a 5% ratio. You're sacking him 5% of the dropbacks, but one sack, and it was Van Fillinger again.
Yeah, I'm a lover, not a fighter, and the less time these guys have to rush the quarterback and less opportunities, I'm good with that because that means man's not getting any closer to my record. But hey, given only a 5% chance that Van came through, that's impressive. It just goes to show his dominance, right, and how well he's doing, and how much the game has really slowed down for Van. Given this is his fourth or fifth year, whatever it may be. But just the experience that comes with it, from the practice field to the film room to the real life game experience, he's got it. And now he's just starting to pile on, right? He's one of the leading sackers in the country. So happy to see him and his success and bouncing back from some of the injuries that he's gone through. But again, for a quarterback like that to get the ball out so fast, for him to get around that edge and bend that corner, and get to the quarterback in a timely manner. I know at one point during the game, he was getting the ball out in 2.2 seconds. So when you do get your opportunity, you got to get home, and Van did just that.
Nate Orchard, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, as we march closer to a football weekend where Utah takes on the University of Arizona at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Want to focus on that matchup. You can be lured into some false sense of security if you watch Arizona's last game. They looked really bad against Kansas State, and we know what happened to Kansas State in Provo, so I think that can double the risk of being like, Arizona's not a good team. Nate, I think they're a really talented team. I think they're dangerous in certain areas, and we talked about this to start the show, especially in their pass game. They've got Tetaroa McMillan, who's going to be a first-round draft pick. Noah Fafita is a quality quarterback with some dual-threat ability, but he likes to use his arm to hurt you. And the Utah pass rush becomes much more important here. Make the life of your defensive backs easy by getting home, getting to the quarterback, getting him to the ground, or at least affecting his ability to throw on platform. How do they make it happen against Arizona?
Well, they got to get to the head of the snake, and that's Noah Fafita. He's a great leader. He's poised in the pocket, and has gone through a lot of trials himself to really get him to where he is today. And the platform that was given to him last year, and the opportunity that he took and made it his own. He's just now on a stage where he's got national recognition. And so for him to have a receiver like McMillan and to be able to connect with him, that duo is quite frankly, amazing to watch. And so for them to have a game like they did last week is unlike them. But Arizona historically, OC, I tell you what, has always given us fits, right? My 4 years there from 2011 to 14, I mean, I went 1-3 against, or 1-4 against Arizona, and they always give us a tough time, right? I had the 3 losses. They just find a way to fight through, and whether that's schematically setting their players up for success. But when you have a quarterback like Fafita, receiver like McMillan, it just sets up, that offense really well. and puts them in, opportunities to succeed week in and week out.
This is a little off topic. Did you have any of your high school teammates come with you to the University of Utah? Did any of your fellow Highland Rams end up at the U with you?
Fellow Rams. Oh my gosh, I don't think so. I want to say yes, but not any that sticks out to me.
I'm sure there were other Highland players there, but the reason I asked that is because T-Mac and Manu on the defensive side of the ball and Noah Fafito, they all came together from Servite High School. They this thing for them. I think they've been teammates since 7th to 8th grade, and they have this crazy friendship and this crazy chemistry because of that. And it feels like it's uncommon. Look, I mean, you played in the pros. You probably didn't even have pro teammates that were with you for that many years, which is crazy.
Which is wild, yeah. And then how fortunate for them, right? And I don't know what the statistic is as far as, whether it's 5%, 8%, as far as, kids that go from high school to college, and let alone be on the same college team, right? And so how sweet of that for them to be able to have this opportunity.
All right, let's talk about the environment Arizona is coming into. We discuss it, and we just throw it out like it's factual, like Rice Eccles, the Muss, night game, blackout, it's loud, it's crazy. Nate, you actually played in these environments. Can you quantify, can you articulate the way that it changes, I don't know, the game for you, maybe even your performance because of what is going on at Rice Eccles Stadium? We know that it's special, but I can't tell you why it's special.
Yeah, it's really hard to put into words, OC, but there is something special about the energy in the stadium, about a night game, and, depending on the opponent, and Arizona being a caliber opponent and the rich history there. For me, my senior year, I believe we played USC at home, and that was a night game, and the stadium was just electric. And it being a night game here at 8:30 kickoff, 8:15 kickoff, there's going to be, energy throughout the entire day. I've had people asking me about tailgating, what time are we going out, what time are we going to set up for the game, right? And so the excitement is there with the Utes sitting at 4-0, ranked number 10, right? Just brings that much more energy to this environment. And with the rivalry in a way where, they got us last year and we got to go get them back this year.
So Cam Rising's in a really tough position. We hope he's going to play. We don't know if he's going to play. Obviously, he can't just in the media tell us, yes, I'm going to play definitively. They try to keep these things all secret. But you didn't miss games with injury. Some of your teammates did, even important teammates, even guys who were team captains, right? How difficult is it to lead from the sideline? How hard is it to be that guy that he's supposed to be from a leadership standpoint if he doesn't end up being the dude who's out there on the field taking the snaps?
Yeah, it's tough. I was fortunate to where I played, I think, 49 of my collegiate games and didn't miss an NFL or a game until my second year in the pros where I got a high ankle sprain. But being out those 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain, it does something to you mentally. It makes you wonder if your teammates are questioning you, right? Because at that point, you can only do so much from the sideline, from the rehabilitation standpoint, and being a quarterback of, a Big 12 team, you want to be out there supporting your team and leading them to a conference title, making it to the playoffs, and then just bouncing back from an injury of that magnitude is difficult, knowing that there's so much in the media, social media, about what's being said about you and your health, and being able to lead a team is hard. It's hard without a doubt, but all you can do is just be the best person, be the best version of yourself, and continue to lead from the sideline, because at this point, that's really all you can do, and try to be that example and encourage younger guys like Isaac Wilson, because with all of that, it gets hard, because you never know the view your teammates may have of you or coaches. And I was the type to hate letting people down, and I'm sure Cam's the same way. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you just got to continue to get yourself better and healthy and continue to support your teammates the best way you can.
All right, this is off the Utes topic, but Reggie Bush is suing USC, is suing the NCAA is suing the Pac-10 because he was not allowed to receive NIL funds. And look, he was playing 10 years before you were playing. You obviously could have taken advantage of NIL as a great player, as a legend in this program, as a guy at the top of the record books. What are your thoughts on former players trying to get a slice of the pie that was denied when you were eligible?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I don't know if you're complimenting me or what, OC, but I just missed the threshold of the NIL, right? I mean, I was at the point where I was only making $1,000 a month on scholarship, but it's a tough situation when you see these billions of dollars going back to former athletes, and yet there's a cutoff. And I'm one of those guys who missed the cutoff, unfortunately. But for these universities and conferences to capitalize on these athletes' images, I think it's only right that guys get what they deserve. And I think once you open that door, I think this is what you're going to run into, where guys want their piece of the pie. And no one more iconic than Reggie Bush deserves it. And, don't be surprised to see more of this kind of stuff coming down the pipe where, guys want to, who help these universities and win games and representing the school in a respectful manner would just like to be compensated. You could definitely expect more of it here in the near future.
All right, before I let you go, Advanced Window Products, great partners here on the show, here on ESPN 700 for all the Utes and all the Utes listeners, and I know you have a special deal going on for fans of the Sean O'Connell Show.
Yes, just for you, OC, if you're listening and you call Advanced Windows today, you'll receive $3,000 off the purchase of 10 or more windows. And all you got to do is call and get on the schedule. If you had the thought of replacing your windows or would like a full window audit, just give Advance a call at 801-850-9100. Allow one of our technicians to come out and assess your home with you, do a full audit of your windows, whether it's the windows that need to be replaced or just the glass. As the weather starts to turn, again, you want to keep your house nice and comfortable on the inside as it starts to get cold out there. But give Advance a call and allow us to come out and assess your home.
Nate, always a pleasure hearing from you. Thanks for your time, sir.
Appreciate you, Champ. Thanks, OC.
Nate Orchard, the mayor of Sac Lake City. Some good insight. And look, when he says he missed the cutoff, the NCAA settlement is going to go back to 2016, so he's just outside that range. But there's going to be a lot more lawsuits, like Nate said. Plenty more to get to. Sean O'Connell Show on a Thursday. It's ESPN 700.
All right, final half hour or so here on the Sean O'Connell Show. I am not Sean O'Connell. James Peterson, one of the regular producers of the show. Finishing it off for you, Sean is on his way to Scotland, calling PFL fights across the pond. I think those fights are Saturday night for PFL. Watch it on ESPN Plus, I believe, Saturday night from Scotland. He's going to catch up with Scott Mitchell on the show tomorrow. Speaking of a Scot, I don't know if he's Scottish heritage. That's my bad. But his name is Scott. Scott Mitchell, Utes legend, radio color analyst. You hear him on each and every one of the Utah football game broadcasts here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. You're going to hear him on Saturday, coming up 2 days from now at Rice-Eccles Stadium versus Arizona. You'll hear him before that, though, here on the station because he's filling in for one OC tomorrow. He'll be live at Tim Dolly Infinity doing that show. Excited to have Scott back on the airwaves. I hope you guys are excited about it too. He's been itching to get back on the airwaves ever since he left the other station, and we've been happy to give him a bit of a home here, and I think he's done an awesome job filling in for OC. Hopefully you feel the same. He'll be back again tomorrow hosting the show. You got me for the rest of today's show on this Thursday, 2 days before game day, Utah versus Arizona at Rice-Eccles Stadium. 48-hour rule in effect. Getting close to it anyway. As OC is wheels up, as they say, to Scotland, calling PFL fights coming up Saturday night across the pond. We've got Utah football sound for you, practice sound. We heard from Kyle Whittingham. We heard from linebackers coach Colton Swan. We heard from Van Fillinger. He's leading the nation in sacks, by the way. Leading pass rusher on Utah, leading pass rusher in the entire nation in college football, Van Fillinger. Also heard from new cornerback, transfer from Michigan, Cam Calhoun. What a boon he's been for that cornerback room, by the way. We were all devastated when Kenan Johnson couldn't get through a half, ended up sustaining that season-ending injury against SUU in the first half. Cam Calhoun didn't play in that game. I don't know about the rest of you, but he was kind of out of sight, out of mind for me. He comes back for week 2 against Baylor, plays terrific week 3 at Utah State, had another really good game Saturday against Oklahoma State. I mean, it's been awesome. It's been exactly what Utah has needed, especially since they haven't had Kenan Johnson this year. They were relying on the veteran transfer from Georgia Tech to be a big part of this defense, the big part of this secondary. He went down. There were already some doubts among the fan base, among us here at ESPN 700, 92.1 FM as well, a little bit. OC expressed some of those doubts about the depth of the cornerback room. All of those doubts have been answered. They've been answered, and they've been answered again. Thanks to a guy like Cam Calhoun and the rest of that, and the rest of the guys who've been in the program for a while, Zamiah Vaughn, Smith Snowden, and others, really stepping up, taking this opportunity, and they've really shined. Cam Calhoun has been a big part of that. So we're going to start with Kyle Whittingham, and he was asked at first. You'll hear Josh Furlong, KSL.com, ask him about the possibility of what happens if Isaac starts a game, Cam's available to play, Isaac has to leave due to injury. What happens there? Would you throw Cam in there? Kyle Whittingham had an interesting answer to that.
Kyle, if Isaac has to miss time for any reason on the field, would Cam be available, or how would you approach that scenario?
What are you talking about?
Like if Isaac is the starter, let's say he had to go out for a rep or two or whatever, how would you approach that? Is it Brandon or is it Cam? Or?
To be determined. Yeah, to be determined throughout the course of this week, and again, it's hinged upon how things go in practice. Where guys are health-wise, that type of thing. Don't have that answer just yet.
How has practice been the last 2 days with the quarterback situation?
Good, very good. I mean, we didn't practice yesterday. We just have walkthroughs and conditioning and lifting. So first real day of practice today, and they look sharp.
How different is this Arizona team from last year? I know there's a lot of different.
Yeah, well, different coaching staff. Obviously, that's the first thing. Is the different schematics. It's not the same offense. It's not the same defense. They got some really good players. The quarterback's a tremendous player. The receivers are tremendous players. So they got some real weapons on the football team. They're coming off a bye, so they'll be fresh. Coming off a loss prior to the bye, so they're a little bit of a wounded animal, which is unpredictable. They got to have some confidence because they whooped us last year. So they got some things going for them. There's some X factors in this game.
A few weeks
I'm sure
ago,
that'll be in print tomorrow.
a few weeks ago, you said that Rabbit Evans is someone that you have expectations for, but he hasn't been in the playbook as much. How would you assess his progress thus far in the season?
I would say he's someone that we have a lot of faith in. I think he has a big upside, just not quite assignment sound enough yet to get extensive playing time. You've seen him sporadically, but he's still a work in progress as far as learning the system. And our system is there's a steep learning curve for linebackers and safeties in our system. And so he's making progress, but he's just not quite there yet.
To that point, Alex Gilman seems like he's really starting to come in. What do you see from him?
Yeah, he's been here longer than Rabbit, so he's had more time to assimilate the offense. But he's played really good football for us, very reliable, had a big interception on Saturday, and extremely intelligent. He's a Stanford guy. What do you say? That says it all, right? Stanford guy? Okay.
There it is. You heard Coach Witt. I thought a great question by Josh Furlong, KSL.com, by the way, asking him, okay, in the event that Isaac Wilson starts the game but Cam Rising is dressed and available, like we've seen the last 2 weeks, does Cam play if Isaac has to leave the game due to injury? Witt said, to be determined. They're trying to figure that out. To be determined. So there you go. Bit of a non-answer there, but I thought a great question by Furlong. Also loved what he had to say about they're not underestimating Arizona at all. They got destroyed by Kansas State, a good Kansas State team, obviously, 2 weeks ago. Then they had a bye week, so right now their stock is trending down, if you will. You've heard OC and I talk about how they are still a dangerous team. We just don't know quite how dangerous because they're coming off of a loss where they just looked overmatched against a team that going into it, we thought they'd be much more competitive against. 31-7 loss. But that doesn't take away the great weapons they have on offense. Noah Fafita, T-Mac. So interesting thoughts from Witt there. Next, we want to play the scrum with one Van Fillinger. He was asked, what do you remember from last year's game against Arizona where they got blown out in Tucson? He said, don't remember much, just know it wasn't fun.
What do you remember of that Arizona game and how much motivation does it provide for you guys?
I don't remember too much. Honestly, I just remember it wasn't fun. But yeah, no, I definitely want to do better this year, not lose. Show them the progress that we've made and how we've gotten better and put that out there.
When you face a familiar opponent, being in a new conference, is that easier in some respects, knowing that you have a team that you're used to facing?
I wouldn't say easier. I'd just say we would prepare the same way that we would on any other team. We're familiar with them. We've played against them a few times, so we know how they play and what they do. But I wouldn't say that makes it any easier or changes our way of preparation. It's just going to be the same. Doing our best every week in order to get better and play the right way against them.
Coming off the win against Oklahoma State, what do you feel you guys learned about yourself as a defense?
I don't know. I think we are a good team. I think we knew that. I think we knew what we were capable of, and I think we have shown holes in the past where we made mistakes on our technique and our responsibility. But I think we did a better job against Oklahoma State at keying in on what we did wrong. And it's just always a progress. It's never going to be over. We're always going to be trying to get better and trying to do our jobs at a higher capability. So.
You're leading the nation in sacks. What's allowed you to hit kind of this new level this year?
Just a lot of change. I had to change a lot of the things that I felt like I wasn't doing right. And I've just been trying to keep my head on my shoulders and do things the right way. And, I really just dedicated myself to my craft and I made it everything to me, so I'm just going to try to keep doing that. And there's no reason why anything should change as long as I don't change from what I'm doing. So,
what were some of those changes that you did make over the offseason?
First of all, I got healthy, which was a big step up from last year. And then besides that, I eat really healthy now, work out every day, got on the playbooks, harder on practice harder, practice my technique way more, just kind of just making it so it's everything to me, just making it so that I'm fully ingrained in what we're supposed to do and being more dedicated.
How does it feel having put in all that work and making it such a big focus to see the sort of payoff that you've seen in the last 5-4 games?
It feels good, but also it doesn't feel like I'm done. I feel like I got a lot of work to do, and I feel like I haven't reached my best ball, which I don't know if I ever will feel like I did. But I just know that there's so much more I can do, and I just got to keep going, not get complacent.
Van Fillinger, yeah, it was not fun, and looking forward to an opportunity to kind of avenge that loss. And I also liked what he had to say about what's the secret. What's the secret to your improvement this year? He's leading the nation in sacks, 5.5 sacks through 4 games this year. That's over a sack a game. Loved what he had to say. He said, I'm eating healthier. I'm healthy. He played hurt all last season, as you've heard OC talk about. And I like how he said that his dedication to the game is much better. He's much more dedicated to the game, much more dedicated to his craft, and he's just made it everything. He said that over and over again, that dedication, making his performance, his preparation for every game, his practices, everything. Practicing his technique more. Simply practicing harder each time has been kind of the secret to his success so far this year. Again, leading the nation with 5.5 sacks. I also love that he said, he ended kind of with, I don't feel like I'm done. If he's not done, it's going to be a hell of a year for Van Fillinger. It's already been a hell of a start of a year for the defensive end. Up next, Cam Calhoun. You heard me talk about what a godsend he's been for this secondary and how good this secondary has been. Well, he's been a huge part of that. Cam Calhoun, interestingly enough, he had a good game against Oklahoma State, but he started out by saying he's not thrilled with his performance, and he feels like there's a lot more he can improve on coming off of Saturday's win at Oklahoma State.
How do you feel about your performance against Oklahoma?
I didn't really like my performance. I still gave up 2 catches. The previous week I was ranked 92 from PFF grade, so I really wanted to get the 90 last week, so I wasn't happy with it, but this week I am going a little bit harder just so I can make sure I'm a dominant corner in this game.
How do you measure that so you don't kind of rely on them so much and just kind of play your game?
My fault, rephrase that.
Well, just like, how do you just kind of focus in on the game and not worry necessarily about that or something?
Because I know if I'm doing my job, everything else is really going to take care of itself. I got to trust the D-line is going to do their job, the linebackers are going to do their job, and I know if I just do my job, then the defense is going to be great.
What stands out about Arizona's offense?
T-Mac. T-Mac really does stand out about Arizona offense. They have a good offense. They have a good team. So we just need to get prepared this entire week to get out here and go beat them.
The secondary room seems like it's been improved each week. Where do you feel like you guys can continue to improve?
On our communication, we can improve on our communication a lot. I feel like once we get that part down, and it's always something that we can always do better, no matter if it's our footwork, hands. All of that is going to come throughout the week, throughout weeks and throughout games. So right now, it's getting a feel for everything.
Personally, how have you felt as you've kind of gone back into football?
I'm feeling great. I really thought that my leg was going to bother me coming off the surgery, but I really feel like it was a blessing in disguise, me getting hurt, because I feel like I'm better now than I was before I got hurt. So it just made me really focus on it made me see the game in a different perspective. Like, all of this can't end one day, so you got to give my all every day.
What is it that you take pride in most about what you bring to the team?
My physicality. If you turn on the tape, really, it's just me being physical with any receiver that I'm going against. I try to just respect my opponents, but I just feel like I'm stronger. You feel me?
You can brag.
Feel me?
Do you take any pride in maybe some of these receivers that get a lot of notoriety, or does your approach change in how you approach that?
No, I mean, of course, there's some receivers that are better than others, but I try not to look at it like that. I try to look at it as they're still a receiver on their side. There's still somebody I have to guard at the end of the day, so they got to get locked down.
How about him starting out talking about how his PFF grade was too low for his liking? Not that he felt that PFF graded him too low, but that he didn't earn a higher grade was something that he was disappointed with in the Oklahoma State game. Man, when players tell you they don't pay attention to that kind of stuff, they do a little bit. And it's nice to hear Cam Calhoun just admit right there that I look at that stuff, and it motivates me. So that was interesting. Also, he was asked who stands out in Arizona. One word, T-Mac, the talented wide receiver. He stands out. And, yeah, man, I love that they call it that dog in him, with the dog in cornerbacks and defensive backs. But he's got that dog in him. Did you hear what he said about, I'm better, I'm stronger? You feel me? That was amazing. Cam Calhoun, love the confidence, and he's playing with a ton of it right now. And you can tell he's excited to kind of measure himself up against one of the best wide receivers in the nation in T-Mac and the Arizona Wildcats this Saturday. Last scrum we're going to play for you from Tuesday's practice. Linebackers coach Colton Swan talking about his guys' performance, the linebackers' performance in the win at Oklahoma State on Saturday.
How would you assess how your linebackers defense played on Saturday?
Good, yeah, we played good. You know, there was obviously a letdown within a few minutes of the last part of that game, but up to that point we were playing some solid defense. I think we were gap sound, especially up front, the front seven, and the linebackers played really well. There's always things that you can improve on. You know, you look back on things. It wasn't a perfect day, but it never is. But I thought the guys flew around and made some plays. It was good to see Jono out there. It was good to have Sione go and Lander. They all did a great job.
In Jono's transition from safety to linebacker, what sort of progress have you seen from him over the last couple of weeks?
He's he's a very athletic, talented kid. Even before he came down to linebacker, a lot of what he was doing at the safety position carries over to the linebacker spot. You just have a few different responsibilities. The transition's been easy and good for him. He's caught on to it very quickly. He's an extreme talent. He's still got ways to go and to learn a few things from the technical standpoint, but the mental side and the willingness and the athleticism, it's all there. He's going to be a great one.
What is it about safeties or guys who've been recruited as safeties before they got here that seem to transition well to linebacker?
Nephi Sewell, a great example of that, being able to play safety, transition down. A lot of why those type of guys are able to do that is because of their quickness. The closer you get to the line of scrimmage, the quicker you need to be, believe it or not. And so, you take a safety that has that athleticism, moving down closer to the line of scrimmage, and you can really see it start to showcase down there when you're going against 310 pound offensive linemen, things of that nature. So the speed and the quickness is a huge carryover.
You mentioned Sione earlier. What have you seen from his game so far that you have liked?
Sione's a talented player. He's extremely intelligent. He's going to get a line and a sign as fast as anybody. He's very physical. He packs a pretty powerful punch for a linebacker, so he can handle himself in the box with those big boys. He's a very studious kid, smart, intelligent, like I mentioned. He's just an all-around type of linebacker.
What things have you had to do with Karena's absence, due to an injury and so forth?
Well, I think, moving Jono was one of the biggest things, is moving him down, filling that void, and just getting everybody on the same page. You take a guy like Karene with his impact out of the game plan, that's a huge void. and being able to feel it. You know, you're trying to do your best in shuffling guys around and making sure you can, fill that up, that void up. And I thought we did a pretty good job in the last couple games with Karene being gone. I know he's doing well, and hopefully we'll be back shortly. So.
What do you make of the Arizona Wildcats in that matchup this Saturday?
They're a talented team. I mean, they're talented up front from an offensive line standpoint. They got really talented running backs that run the ball very hard. Obviously, the quarterback is phenomenal. We faced him last year and have nothing but respect for him. The wide receiver, number 4, is a great player, so it should be a really good matchup. Obviously, a lot of respect from us. I love what they do from an offensive standpoint. They challenge you defensively in the box and out on the perimeter as well.
That's Colton Swan. Man, he shouted out Jonnu Hall, Sione Fotu. No one asked about him. He just offered that he liked what he's seeing from them. They're getting a lot more playing time. Jonnu Hall, of course, playing linebacker for the first time after being safety up until now, even in fall camp, mostly playing safety, practicing his safety. I liked what he had to say because something I've noticed, and all of you have noticed it too, the amount of guys who were either recruited as a safety, maybe came to the program as a safety, played a year or so at that position, and then turned into great linebackers, and they ended up finding a home at linebacker. Devin Lloyd was one of those guys, and perhaps the best linebacker in program history, right? He was one of those guys. Jonnu Hall is another one of those guys. Chase Hansen, another one of the best linebackers in recent history, at least, in Utah football. He was an all Pac-12 safety before moving to linebacker his senior year. Jonnu Hall is just the latest of those guys. And I liked what he had to say about, I was curious about it. That's why I asked, what is it about safeties that allowed him to transition to linebackers so well in this program? And it was interesting hearing him say that their quickness helps a ton because the closer you get to the line of scrimmage, the quicker you have to be. So the speed and quickness is kind of the biggest thing, and I like how he shouted out Jonnu Hall's mental game. The mentality is there, his willingness to play, willingness to do whatever for the team to win. It's all there for him. He just maybe the things that still need to be tightened up a bit are technique and kind of knowledge of the schemes and things at the linebacker position, but you can tell Colton Swan very pleased with Jonnu Hall so far in his transition from safety to linebacker. And you can also tell those other things can be taught, right? They're not worried about his technique not being 100% where it needs to be. They're not worried about his knowledge of the position, the scheme, where he needs to be in their defensive scheme and some of their defensive plays, if you will, at the linebacker position, because you can tell they feel like we can teach that. That other stuff we can't teach. We can't teach the physicality, the physical mentality that you need to bring to every play. You can't teach the willingness to do whatever it takes to help the team win, help the defense be great, including change positions. You can tell Colton Swan very pleased with that so far, and Jonnu Hall, maybe a rising star in this defense going forward. Also notable at the end there, Colton Swan snuck in a little pseudo update on Karene Reed. He says he's doing well. Hopefully he'll be back shortly. So there you go. Nothing really there, but good to hear that they're hopeful that Karene can come back soon. In the meantime, Sione Fotu, Jonnu Hall seem to be taking advantage of the opportunity to fill in for the great Karene Reed, Utah injured linebacker right now. Coming up on the other side, we're going to close up shop here on a Thursday, 2 days before game day, Utah versus Arizona. We've got topical trivia for you. We've got 2 tickets to see Thomas Rhett at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater next September, and 2 free Jersey Mike sub cards. They are the hot lunch sponsor
for this week. Preview a little Thursday night football coming up on the station tonight. NFL Week 4 gets started officially tonight. We've got it for you here on your home of the NFL. A little NFL preview and closing up shop on the other side. This is the Sean O'Connell Show. James Peterson filling in for OC this last little bit of the show here on Utah's #1 sports talk and home of the Utes, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Here, just a few minutes left on this Thursday show. Big thank you to Eric Weddle, Utah football legend, another Utes legend, Nate Orchard, the mayor of Sac Lake City, and the one and only Gordy Chiesa, former Utah Jazz assistant coach, our NBA and Utah Jazz insider, for joining us today. Thank you to OC as well for the great job that he's been doing. Hopefully you've been loving the show since he took over for Bill Riley here in the middays in July. Appreciate all of your ears. You're listening on the app. You're listening on the website, that Listen Live tab. Telling your smart speaker to play ESPN 700. If you're listening on the 700 AM dial, 92.1 FM dial. And thank you for listening in all of those ways. And watching us on YouTube as well, YouTube Live. Hopefully you're loving the YouTube stream. ESPN 700 Sports Utah is where you go for that one. Or you search ESPN 700 YouTube. Take you there. You'll see today's latest episode. Thank you so much for your eyes and your ears here on a Thursday Sean O'Connell show. I'm not Sean O'Connell. I'm James Peterson. OC is on his way to Scotland calling fights for PFL across the pond. And those fights take place Saturday night on ESPN+. We'll hear from him tomorrow. Scott Mitchell filling in for OC from 11 to 2 tomorrow from Tim Dolly Infinity. Excited for that. OC will check in from Scotland with Scott Mitchell tomorrow on the Sean O'Connell Show. We got topical trivia for you. 2 tickets to see Thomas Rhett at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater next September. And 2 free Jersey Mike subs cards to the first person to answer this trivia question. Who did Gordy Chiesa say was the Utah Jazz second best player on this team? OC asked him first hour of the show. We know Lauri Markkanen's the number 1 player on this team. Who's the number 2 guy? Who did Gordy Chiesa say? Text that to our Dish Pros text line 877-353-0700. 877-353-0700. First person to text the correct answer wins the prize package. 2 tickets to see Thomas Rhett, Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater in West Valley next September, and 2 free Jersey Mike subs cards to the first person who texts the correct answer to 877-353-0700. Coming up on the station tonight, we got Thursday Night Football. Giants hosting the Cowboys, rivalry renewed. Couple of subpar teams so far in the NFL, though. Hopefully it's a good game. MetLife Stadium. Daniel Jones and the Giants versus Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. Listen to it right here on your home of the NFL, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, right after the drive, right at 6 o'clock. Should be a good one. You can also watch it on Prime Video. But tune in to the station for the radio call via our friends at Westwood One. Speaking of the drive, that's coming up next. Spence Checketts, Porter Larson, they're going to take you home, take you all the way up to the start of our NFL coverage. Thursday Night Football, Giants-Cowboys, coming up at 6. Stream them also on our YouTube page, YouTube channel, at ESPN 700 Sports Utah. It's the drive with Spence Checketts, going from 2 to 6. That's next here on Utah's #1 sports talk, home of the Utes, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.